lizard people, like conspiracy theory. Like they're calling Taylor Swift a man. What
Right.
anyway.
They're just punching down.
I know.
Anyway, sorry.
What about you, Issa?
Wow. So let's see. I think it was very interesting. It was not the debate I was expecting. Ben is very interesting. I suspect Ben is a person of Jewish origin. Um, for a lot of reasons. He sounds like my family. My family is very much like that, big into Eastern philosophy. Um, Probably from Israel. I wouldn't be shocked if that's where he comes from. But it was interesting how he kind of intertwined his own feelings towards Abrahamic faiths. I thought that that was kind of an interesting thing to see from his cultural background, and you can kind of tell he's Jewish because he called the text Torah, Nevi'im, and Ketuvim. I was like, yeah, that's pretty solid. You know, people don't usually call the text that; they would call it Old Testament if they come from like a Christian background or a Muslim. Well, Christian background. Muslims might just call it Torah. But I thought that was interesting. Ben was a very interesting person to have on the stage, and he kind of used the same sort of repetitious line. He's like, "What about the Sirah and the Sunnah? Don't you, you're very unique that you're not into Sirah and Sunnah." And he said that like 5 times.
I was really distracted by his voice. I was not expecting that voice to come out of that body. I don't know why. It was like
he had very Israeli type of voice, very Israeli kind of sounding voice. So that was interesting. I think Mohammed is pretty much he's bringing what he usually brings. So I wasn't shocked by that. I liked how pleasant it was, that it was not incendiary. I did think it was weird on one part. It was hard, I think, for Ben because he didn't, English was not his first language. When the part where he said he didn't read Quran, well, he did read some of the Quran because obviously he had to if he was talking about cutting off the hands and stuff. He must have read something that was there. So I mean, that was a weird thing that kept getting pushed, that he didn't read the Quran. Well, he had to if he knew that type of thing. Maybe he didn't read the entire Quran. Most people don't. Most people have not read the entire Tanakh. Most people haven't read the entire New Testament. That's just not what usually happens. But people usually read some of it, and so I thought that that was a strange thing that occurred during the debate. I think.
Well, just first impressions. So we'll go over to the different.
Okay, sure. Sorry, I gave a little bit deeper analysis on my first impression. Sorry about that.
Robin Lester, thanks for the $5 super chat. Genders are not equal, says Mohammed. I agree, women are superior. Thank you very much. Ooh, look, see, like, yeah, big huge present. Oh, look, and then she gifted. Thank you, Robin Webster, once again for a channel membership to one of our lucky new members. It looks like Smashville is a new member. You're welcome to the new membership. Thank you, Robin.
Essentially Smashville.
Yeah. Yeah, consensually Smashville, I guess. My first impressions, I mean, I don't know. Like I struggle to find like an argument with either side in their openings. And I was trying to take notes too. I tried. And it was cordial. So it makes me rethink like my openings now. Should I do bullet points to drive home? I really mean this, this, and this, and not a lot of preamble to focus. Because really, like you get into these debates, if you don't focus it down to your individual claims, sometimes they go off on these weird tangents. So maybe long openings aren't necessarily the best for a opening argument. I don't know. Or maybe like discuss your 2 or 3 claims, whatever it is, explain why they're true, and then summarize your 2 and 3 claims again. So like the audience is reminded of that. That might be another way to do it anyways.
Yeah.
So we will go around the board. Here, banners. Mohammed. Oh, I misspelled this. Hold on. It was misspelled in the title as M-O, but it's M-U. I messaged him, asked him to fix it. Okay, so what did we think of Muhammad's argument, his debate style? and stuff like that. We can start with you, Matt.
Okay, in regards to the argument, it was well put, it was coherent. I don't believe it because I didn't find it compelling, but I was pleasantly surprised by him today in a good way. I was expecting him to do a lot worse, and I said it in the pre-show, but I think that he's getting better, and it may also have to do with Ben kind of being a little bit less aggressive in his debate style than the ones that I've seen Mohammed participate in. But even though I didn't find them compelling, there were some things I had to think about. We can maybe go into them later in the open discussion.
What was Mohammed's argument?
Well, hard to summarize the whole opening, but damn, you stumped me. You put me on the spot.
Well, you said it was coherent, like.
Yeah. I didn't see any contradictions in the moment, but I have a hard time like remembering exactly what he said. It's basically the things, some of the things that we've always heard about, but I think he put a good opening statement, well enough. I don't find it compelling, but I didn't see any contradictions like some people do have, and yeah, let's leave it like that for now.
All right, what about you, Earl?
Just, it was, a lot of apologetics. Just, I don't understand why humanity needed to be a collective. I didn't understand that point at all. And then the, no, we don't actually do stonings, but wait, this thing about cutting off people's hands, and I don't know.
That's sort of towards the end too.
It didn't showcase the best of Islam, I don't think.
All right. Did you think Muhammad performed well? What you listened to? I know you checked out, but
yeah, listening to both of them, it was like watching paint dry. I didn't. There was no energy there, so it was hard to parse out specific things.
I love this quote from the Bible. It's one I actually do appreciate. And it's sort of like, I would say, like my ethical framework when I look at the way people interact, is I'm a determinist. And welcome everybody to the channel. If you have any questions for the panel, tag at Matters Now or send a super chat. It looks like they finally ended the stream over there. So maybe some of you decided to come over here, and you're all welcome. You can come up to the stage. I pinned the link to the stage. Feel free to come up. But the reason why I like this is because I'm sort of a determinist. I think people do things based upon past experiences. Maybe I'm a compatibilist. You could see I'm probably a compatibilist, where I think we can still hold people morally responsible, that they have some measure of deliberation between how they respond based upon their education and training and their values and stuff like that. So I find that pretty important. I just want to point that out. But go to Issa. What did you think about Team Muhammad tonight?
Let's see. There's several arguments that he was making. It kind of covered sort of what I thought he was going to cover. He's covering like a morality argument. He's trying to say that the Quran and Islam is moral, and it keeps a coherent, functional society. So that was kind of definitely a backbone of the argument he was making, at least in his opening statement. It wasn't too heavy duty in science, which is cool. That was not like a big focus. But I think it would definitely the philosophical argument that he was really hedging most of it on is that Islam keeps the society coherent, it's ethical, it's moral, and it does things right, while other things aren't right. Other cultures, they might be good, but they're not perfect. The Quran is perfect. And I think that that was kind of his position. Um, Throughout the debate, what was brought up was uh, Ben kept bringing up the Sirah, and I'll explain what that is to the audience because maybe people don't know what that is. And I think it
we'll
would have
go
been good.
We'll go into
Huh?
Ben's next if you want to wait, but
Oh, I was just going to explain that because
okay.
it's a part of Muhammad's position, you know, and it wasn't really addressed. So the Sirah is the life of the Prophet. One of the most famous compilations is Ibn Ishaq. So that is the kind of it's the text that tells you about the life of the Prophet of Islam. So yeah, that's the Sirah, and the Hadith are the traditions. So that kept being brought up, and he kind of was saying, yes, there are certain issues with that, but we need to focus. The Quran is the most important thing to focus on, and that's the perfectly preserved. So that was kind of the interaction that we saw. In debate style, I think Muhammad definitely has a lot of experience. He's well experienced in what he was doing. He knew he you can tell that he's been doing this for a long time. So he knew exactly how to be equipped for this situation. Like when that issue of the Quran came up, he took advantage of that. He was like, "Oh, you don't know the Quran? So why are you here?" And it makes him look good. It makes his rhetoric look strong. And that's the thing. When we see the debate, we can see that he looks very strong in the debate. He has answers for all the situations that come up. So I think that's why Max says that, because Max saw that he was very competent throughout the entire situation. So that's the important point of engaging that.
Yeah, Muhammad actually just posted, said, "Thank you. That's a pretty good summary for his position." So he seems like he thinks you listened and understood.
And
I tend, yeah, I tend to agree. He was making sort of like those arguments. It sounded like to me like he's building a argument that provides like a society and culture and all these things and stuff like that that give purpose and value to a community and stuff. I don't. That doesn't like move the bar for me for if the claim is true or not. But like maybe there's value in the claim if it does offer something that's of benefit to a culture or a group of people. But that's like that doesn't mean it's true to me. So, but I understand like the argument. Uh, and I think and I'm probably misrepresenting it a little bit. But let's see. I think I one thing I've taken back from that is like I'm thinking like making bullet points, Mohammed, if you're listening, to like drive home like, okay, these are the three things that make my claim more likely true. Here's why my three things are true and the justification for them, and then wrap it up sort of a summary like, and these are the summary of my three things. I'm thinking like my debate I'm going to have with Nadir coming up about is the Quran scientific, which I've seen you do those debates on too, I believe, with Aaron. I think I'm going to rework my argument a little bit based on that, and so so it's punchier. I think that's where I get lost in the weeds sometimes myself. But and then hey, we have Mohammed. Thank you so much for coming up on stage.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Yeah, wonderful.
pretty
So
good.
so the format here is we go over like the debate, what we think of the debaters, their presentation, some of the points that I thought up, and whatever the panelists thought up. So it's meant to be like compliments, things we think people did well, criticisms, things we think people can do better, but it's not about attacking the person.
No, I get it. I understand.
Yeah. Okay. I'd like my criticism about the format, like watching your presentation, it's like I personally got stuck in the weeds a little bit with the opening presentation. That's what I was just explaining. And it's making me reevaluate my own opening presentations. Like, how can I make it so it's super clear what my individual claims are. And then it's like 10 minutes long, and you're like it's me, it's like a person listening to something for the first time. I sort of have to like, I probably needed to watch it again or listen to it again. And then I get distracted because I'm doing 10 other things too. So that's probably also my problem. But anyways.
Well, I think the most of the time the opening statements, most of the people don't listen, and I realize that. And if you really want to put an emphasis on your opening statement, you need a PowerPoint presentation, and people are just going to read that title, and that's what's going to stick to their minds, and then you can go there. But I did hear a comment, which I do agree. Like, this is one of these debates. Like, if you see my debates earlier with me and Baba Shraib against Avery and David Wood, there was a lot more energy there. But here, it's just, to me, I try to match the energy of the person in front of me. If the person is just not willing to, like, be a little bit more theatrical in their responses or give a little bit of life, then there's no point for me to do that either, because then I feel like I'm being arrogant or I'm disrespecting the person. So that comment was warranted earlier, and I kind of felt that. But the other person, I do believe, as you guys said, he was I think he's trying to get his like beak wet, I guess. I don't know what the term would be in debating. He does have his own also unique approach, the whole thing about like denying Abraham and Abrahamic religions, the way he approached it. I haven't heard that before, but it was very interesting. And yeah, he just didn't, I wish he knew the Quran to criticize the Quran. So that's one thing that's just didn't make sense to me. Like, so.
Well, that was our next topic too, on Team Ben, what we thought Ben's performance was. This is the first time I think I've ever seen him debate. I thought at first it was Dr. Ben Burgess, who I think you've debated before, haven't you? Or
no, I don't believe so.
But he debated Nadir on Is the Quran Scientific? That's what it is. So I thought at first it was Ben Burgess, but it's not, obviously. But I seem to remember that voice somewhere. Maybe it was on Discord or something like that. But so what we're going to do, we just go around the panel, and then we're going to see what we think the good points of Ben's arguments were, the bad points of Ben's arguments were, and really it's like a counter argument, because he wasn't really, his claim was that the Islam is not true. So he needed to establish some burden for that. And I think he sort of pointed it out, how he was trying to show the Abrahamic religions were not true, right? So try to that argument. And that's typically how I approach it too. I say, well, if the Torah is not true, then the whole thing's not true. But then you can say, well, the Torah was misrepresented. And that's a good response. Like, your response to that, I thought was good. But I want to kick it over to Max next and get his input. And also welcome to the stage, Dr. J. Oh, and really quick, I also got another $2 super chat, $2 Canadian. So that's like $1.90 or 80 or something. From Taking Back Eden, Effie, Flat Earth. Truth matters now more than ever. Thank you for the stream. You're welcome. We enjoy the conversation, even if we don't always agree. So you take the floor, Max. What do you got?
All right. For Ben, I was a little bit confused at the beginning. I was a bit lost about his whole reclassification of the Abraham and the Abrahami. I didn't get that at all. And as things went on in his opening, I was more and more confused. I was having a hard time seeing the point. And then he kind of lost me a bit when he brought up reincarnation, which I didn't see that as a good strategy to bring to a debate when it has nothing to do with the topic of the debate. So I was a little bit stumped on his opening. Things kind of settled down as the discussion advanced, and we got to hear a little bit more from Ben. And he kind of cleared up that he's a Reformed Buddhist, if you have to label it somehow. And then things started making sense a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I wasn't really following the line of his opening. And maybe it's my fault. Maybe it's just a me thing, but I had a bit of a hard time with that.
Just to be like to Steelman Ben a little bit, So if he's making a positive claim about a worldview he believes is true that contradicts the Islamic worldview, then it would follow that if his worldview is true, then Islam must be false. So if reincarnation does in fact contradict Islam, then it would be that Islam is false if reincarnation was true. But I don't see how he clearly made a case for reincarnation at all. So just to make that clear, like you could have two competing worldviews, and if there's contradictions between the two, and one is true, then the other one must be false. Just how it would have to work. So that is a strategy people can take in these type of arguments. But I want to kick the floor over to Earl. What did you think about Ben's performance tonight? And I think it's the first time we've seen them on Modern Day Debate.
Yeah, I caught the beginning of it mostly. So when Muhammad started kind of vilifying atheism, and he sort of slapped that out of Muhammad's mouth. That was good strategy. But yeah. Other than that, I don't really have anything else to say.
Yeah, I do want to cover that too. It's good to have you here, Mohammed, too, because I do want to talk about if and maybe it goes to my earlier point with Max right now, but is attacking like Christianity and atheism offering worse outcomes a good strategy to support Islam? Maybe, maybe not. So, but I do have that as a topic discussion after we go through the panel. So maybe give some more insight into that.
First.
Yeah.
Segue into that one.
But go ahead, Issa. What did you think about Penn's argument and his performance tonight?
He was very cordial. I think something that echoed from before is that having things organized could be really, really helpful. I think Ben had interesting ideas and interesting arguments. I just think that if they were organized in a better space, it would have been helpful for what he was trying to accomplish. I wasn't quite sure what his goal was in the debate. Like he said, he brought up many times that Muhammad doesn't believe in the Sirah and doesn't believe in the Hadith, and I'm like, well, I don't think that would be helpful because you're debating. You have to then engage and cater your arguments to Muhammad in order to make the argument work. If you're just saying, "Hey, you're a strange kind of Muslim," okay, that's cool. He brought up Sufi. He brought Sufism. He brought up Sufi Muslims and Quranists, and then he talked about Ibadis. Those were certain points that he brought up during the conversation, and Ahmadiyya. I didn't forget about that. He brought up Ahmadiyya and Shias too. And he said, look, these people have certain ideas. Why is Muhammad's ideas not correlating with that? And I'm like, well, I think that's a difficult thing because that would be engaging Muhammad's ideology instead of. I think if you're going to make the argument that is Islam not true, you would first have to define what Islam is. This is what I think in every type of thing. When you're like a teacher, you got to explain your points. You can't just assume to your audience what the information is. So if I was Ben and I was going to make the argument, I would first have to say, okay, I need to explain what Islam means. Then I'm going to have to say, this is why I think Islam doesn't work. And I think that's why you use the opening statement. You have to use the opening statement to make that position. I don't really think he used the platform to do that. But I think throughout the debate, I think he was able to engage. He was able to, go through the banter and engage the arguments. But I think his beginning was also quite short. He was just like, I am not convinced by Islam. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. All right, what are the points of why you're not convinced by Islam? That would have really helped his argument, I think, throughout. That's why you need the intro to say, these are my points, this is what I'm going to argue, and I'm going to use that. And then he kind of started talking about his own, because that was a question that got brought up. But he did mention certain things like he's an expert in modern Hebrew, and he's into Buddhism. I noticed that like his identities came up throughout the debate, where he brought up his kind of Jewish identity, he brought up his Buddhist identity, and those politics came throughout the conversation, which is cool. I love that. That's rich. But I think to make his argument really strong, he should have tied those things together in his intro and said, this is why I don't agree with these things. That's what I think.
Wonderful. And I sort of agree. Like, you sort of have to understand like the common Islamic apologetics. Like, I think I would have said like Islam isn't perfect. Perfection is sort of a subjective claim, regardless of what any type of scholar might claim to the thing. Sort of go to a reason why you would, what I'm talking about. Like, there are sort of general claims people make, and you would want to research, I think, Muhammad's claims and how he approaches the debates in order to offer some type of refutations. But I want to kick the floor over to Muhammad, and Kerry Gold actually has it. He wants to know what she wants to know, what you think Ben's best argument was. So, do you think Ben had a best argument, and if so, what it was? Do you think his performance was pretty good tonight? What do you think?
I think best argument, that one's a little tough one. I think his approach at the end in regards to how Buddhism promotes more concepts for humanity, right? Which then I was able to kind of like say like all those benefits that you're finding in Buddhism is also found in the Quran. I think that was a good argument in that case. I believe he's still, he was being honest, which this is when the discussion is awesome, is when both sides are being honest. Because like I try to be as honest from what I know, and some of the stuff, some people don't like hearing it. I just say it anyways. But one thing that I did realize is that he kind of explained what Islam was in his own terms to what Buddhism is. And then he went as far as repeating my point that people end up idolizing the character rather than the path that character was taking. And I kind of said, so so that path is the truth, right? And he goes, yes, that path is the truth. So he kind of conceded that argument there, and I let it go at that point. I can't remember like verbatim what he said, but he pretty much, in my opinion, conceded the debate at that point. I just had a friendly discussion at that point. But to try to say that, hey, you conceded there and stuff, it usually doesn't go very well. So I just let the people decide later.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's always fun to put you on the spot to say, hey, say something great about your opponent that you just had a debate with for the last 2 hours, right? But I think it helps us grow. Like, it makes us better.
I believe he's from what I was told that he's actually like, he lives in Israel. He is an ex-Jew and also an ex-Zionist. So his worldview is very wrapped up into the extreme version of Judaism, and I'm not bringing down Judaism. I'm more so talking about Zionism, where we have to survive at any cost kind of mentality. So that's and where it's promoted by the religion as well. So he has a very wrapped view of what Abrahamic religions offer. And his understanding of Muslims is what he grew up with, this is what Sunnis believe, this is what Sunnis say, and this is what we see Sunnis do. So when I'm coming to him with just the material of the bare material of like the minimum of what the Quran is saying, to him it's a brand new worldview, which he can see because like the truth whoever's walking on a path with theism, they will recognize the common truth, which is what he said later, which is awesome.
Great, thank you. Dr. J, did you watch the debate tonight? I
did. I didn't get through the Q&A, but I did watch the debate.
So we got Muhammad here. So if you want to comment what you thought about his performance was tonight, any criticism, helpful hints to give him, what he did right, and then on Ben.
I'll start with Ben. I was thinking about him first. Hard to know what the language barrier issues may have been there, but Ben was hard for me to follow as far as, what his main points were and where he was going. And you guys made a lot of the comments, and maybe I don't want to completely say those over, be too negative, but I think he needs to probably practice debating some more. He'll get better at it. Like you said, this is the first time we have known of him debating, and hopefully he'll improve. It's great to have him around. seemed like he was a nice guy, and hopefully that'll keep going, and he'll be able to improve on some of those opening arguments. On Muhammad's performance, I've seen Muhammad debate a few other times. I think he's in on MDD a few times. I thought this was one of his better ones. It may have been, his opponent didn't do him a great service, because I thought it was a little easy for Muhammad tonight, in my opinion. I thought Muhammad being able to say, "You haven't even read it," was sort of like, Muhammad went back to that a few times. I think he did a good job of not overkilling that, but it is hard to say, like, I'm arguing this point when I haven't even read the book. And I realize, if you're going to argue against Christianity, do you need to have read the book of Leviticus to reject Christianity? Like, probably not, but you probably should have read like quite a bit of the main parts at least, right? And so anyway, I think Muhammad has gotten better, it's a little easier for understand. I do struggle with the No True Scotsman, is what feeling I get sometimes when I hear the Muhammad debate. Like, all the other Muslims are wrong and I'm right, and that, I don't know what to do about that, though. I'm not even sure how he can correct that, in the sense, like, if he thinks his version's right and the others are wrong, what is he supposed to do? So it is a challenge that I always feel like he has, because I instantly start feeling like No True Scotsman when I listen to Muhammad debate, but I don't know how he gets around it if he does take a unique form of Islam that a majority of Muslims don't take. So anyway, that was a bit of a ramble, probably not that helpful to Muhammad, but I appreciate you being on MDD, and I feel like you're getting better all the time.
Appreciate it. Actually, one of the first debates, like proper debates, that I ever had was the one with Aaron Wrong, which everybody's seen that one, I'm sure. So that was kind of like my Ben moment, if that makes sense. And yeah, I learned a lot there. And one thing that I do make sure not to like fall too much into it is the No True Scotsman fallacy. But the other thing is that I'm not like a single person with this belief or this approach to Islam, where we've actually existed throughout history, but we always get scrubbed nicely away from history because it's the victor that writes the history. So there's a whole sect that was the dominant sect prior to Ahlus Sunnah Jama'ah or Sunnism, which was called the Mu'tazila. And the Mu'tazilites, they really rejected most of the hadith, and they went with reason. And the Quran is really promoting reason. Reason is what keeps us really like connected, in a sense where people can approach problems differently, and then you can really find a problem, like solve a problem within the whole community. So they like to label us as outcasts, or like like we get called disbelievers and infidels all the time. People hate us because we just like say the book of God is enough for us.
Isn't there a part of the Quran that says you should sort of model your life after anybody? Where does that come from then?
There's two verses, man. So the person that has all the favor from God in the Quran is actually Abraham. Abraham is called like the leader of mankind. So from like the top 10 scoreboard, Abraham is technically number one as per the Quran. Prophet Muhammad is told to follow the creed of Abraham. So if Prophet Muhammad is the best man who ever lived, why is he told to follow someone else? And then like the reason why we go to Mecca is because of the promise God gave to Abraham. We're called an Abrahamic religion. God is always praising as Abraham as the role model for humanity. Now, every time a certain blessing comes down to Prophet Muhammad in the Quran, you see it given to Abraham too. So there's a verse that says that you have a good example in Prophet Muhammad for those who believe in God and believe in the last day and remember God a lot. But then there's also another verse that says, in Abraham and those that believed with Abraham, you have a good example for those who believed in God and like disassociated from the problematic people. So it's like you have an example in both Abraham and Muhammad. But that's what it is. It's examples. It's like you have to understand their way of thinking, not copycat them. Like I don't have to wear a white dress and put a white hat and go around and shave my mustache. That's not what the religion's about.
All right. Where do people get that from? I know I'm off topic, but go ahead, Isa. Where do people get that then? Where they're supposed to use the hadith?
I wanted to piggyback off of that. So I think that there's a problem that we see in the Islamic tradition where there's this kind of whitewashing that happens where everything is kind of put into this standard norm. And there's a lot more issues and problems that need to be explored. And there was conflict, definitely in the beginning, with the Mutazilite, which are the rationalists, and the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, which is kind of the standard. And that's the problem, because when a person, and that's the thing, because you have the opposite logical fallacy, which is the bandwagoning fallacy and appeal to authority. So this group of people says, "Hey, I'm the chosen ones. I'm correct. This corpus of what I'm saying is true." They can say everybody else who doesn't follow that standard is wrong, and then that creates a rift. It creates an issue. So I think that's fair that Muhammad is making that argument. Where do people get this narrative? Well, the thing is, to bolster the narrative of the Sunni tradition or the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah tradition, there needed to be these other corpuses of information that allowed for that, which is the ahadith, which is the sirah, which is the magazi, which is, the fiqh, the jurisprudence. You have all these corpuses of information that exist, and these types of corpuses help allow for like a standardization. And I think about like the early church too. There was controversy there too. You had folks like Arian. You had the Doetists, the Modalists. You had these other kinds of groups of folks that existed, and then you kind of needed a unifying narrative. So that's what I think kind of happened in the tradition. And so you see traditions that say, "Hey, well, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did this. This is the truth." But if we look at the ahadith, how many hadith are there? Like 30,000? I mean, that's a low ball. It could be like 100,000. There's so many traditions that exist, and we don't know. We don't know on the standard of the hadith what's clean and clear about it. It's very complex. It's very difficult. There's definitely arguments for people making hadith up in order to kind of support whatever political argument that they had. So this is a part of the narrative. This is a part of the tradition, and it's difficult. It's complex and hard. So, yeah.
Thanks. Yeah, I hear a lot of apologetics from Muslims about the hadiths and stuff like that. Like, oh, you have to refer to these scholars. Like, oh, how do you know which ones are correct? Like, dude, and then if you point to a hadith that says something, it's not the one I follow. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like, or we interpret it this way. Like, there's some stuff that's in the hadith that are like, I would call it horrible. Like, anyways, but I don't want to talk about those topics. YouTube don't like some of those topics, especially with his wife, one of his wives. But anyways, let's see. So I did want to talk about this. Does stating Christianity or atheism produce worse outcomes make Islam more true, even if Islam has the best outcome for the world? So we're just presupposing the case that Islam does provide a better outcome for humanity over, and atheism doesn't, I don't believe, have any like saying that. You could say like there's forms of humanism that do, or like nihilism, but most atheists I don't think are actually nihilists. There are a good percentage that are, though, but I know some atheists are stoics, so that may offer a view that would be better. But let's just say the beliefs that don't have a belief in God. Oh, it looks like we lost Muhammad again. But we go around the panel, maybe. Max, what do you think?
It's a really good question. And the short answer would be no, because even if something produces the best outcome we could imagine, that is very separate from whether it is whether it's the truth or not. And I don't think that even if it were the case, it would prove that Islam is like the truth. So yeah, good question here.
Mr. United for the Chillwin, I think is your name. You got a free membership from Robin Webster. Again, thank you so much, Robin, for giving out that $2.99 membership. It's like $3 more or $2 more than the minimum. The minimum was only 99 cents. Thank you, Robin. Anybody can become a channel member if they want to. It gives them access to emojis. We got 8 more emojis unlocked too. So if people want to help us come up with emoji designs, we have a Discord that you can come join. Also, somebody says I need to ask for likes, but you know what? I'm Ozian. I don't shill for likes or subscriptions or channel memberships until the end. Like, so, like, I'm not going to beg or cry on stream for any of that stuff. To go to ozian.live/tips. Do not go to ozian.live/tips and send me any money because I'm not working. So that's okay. I'm just messing with people. But we'll go to Earl. What do you think about that question?
You're muted.
Thank you. I was paying attention to chat. Sorry. So yeah, don't mind me. Go to somebody else.
Go to Issa. What do you think?
Does stating Christianity? Yeah, this is something I completely avoid when I debate about this because I just don't see the point. Proving something is not good does not make your position true. And I see a lot of debaters do this, and it's just not a good position. It doesn't work. It doesn't make your narrative any better. It's just a whataboutyouism, tu quoque. It doesn't bolster where you stand. It's more of a red herring deflection kind of tactic. So I think it's better to just focus on what makes your thing good. Like if I were to argue, let's say I'm going to argue that Islam is good, I'm going to say, well, Islam helps and supports the orphans. It supports people impoverished. It creates social network programming through giving alms and creating spaces of creating equity between different classes. It supported women from not being, buried alive. Like these are the types of arguments I would have used for if I'm going to try to show that Islam looks good. Yeah, I think that's a better way to argue your case than to say, another religion's not good or non-religion's not good.
Thank you for that, Itza. What about you, Dr. J?
Could you say like exactly what are you asking? Something about
So I'll give you an example. So they'll say that like, oh, we got Simos Funk coming up on stage now too. But give you an example. People will say like Christianity, there'd be like some study where if you take all the states that are predominantly Christian in the world and look at the number of people they've killed in wars and stuff like that, it outstrips Islam but it's the analyses aren't done fairly if you look at like other ways to analysis to see if the actual religion is the cause versus the country over geopolitical issues that generally is a reason for war. And then they'll say like USSR and China and stuff were atheistic and they were responsible for great famines. That guy there in Germany was atheistic and was responsible for killing millions of people, to try to say that, well, these doctrines offered poor responses, but then we could just do the same thing for Islam and point at 9/11. We can point at other things, and I don't think that's fair to any of the faiths personally. So that's the question. Maybe I answered it for you.
It's really difficult to do, right? Super difficult to do because when you say, oh, well, what about the Crusades, and you just go, well, those were Catholics. I'm not Catholic, or you say, well, the reason that they did the Crusades was all geopolitical, and the religion was the justification, not the cause, and the reason the Russians are blessing their tanks with holy water, and the reason that they're blessing the tanks with holy water has nothing to do with religion. It's just that basically the state took over the religion and is forcing it to whatever, right? Like it's very hard to do that analysis. So I agree with Issa in that sense, but I do sort of empathize with the fact like if you're usually people who claim religion, we're kind of claiming it like helps in some way, right? Like it's useful or positive in
Mhm.
some way. So completely punting on saying it, does, whether it provides value or not, also seems a little unfair. But these macro analysis, like you mentioned, aren't often very accurate or very hard to disentangle. But I do think that, if we want to claim as religions that, we're doing something good for humanity, useful, we should maybe be able to provide some evidence or have some way to prove it or disprove it or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when the examples that Muhammad gave were bad. They're always bad, but it's the same ones that theists always put forward, and that's the communists and the Chinese or whatever. That atheism had nothing to do with powerful men starving hundreds of thousands, millions of people. Um, there was nothing about atheism that made that happen. There was, in communist areas that they were persecuting intellectuals and stuff like that, and clergy, and but they were murdering everybody. So I really don't see how atheism had anything to do with those authoritarian regimes murdering millions of people. It's always a bad example.
Well, as Ross would point out last night, it's a false cause fallacy because you're not linking the two claims together. Like there's more to an ideology than just a belief in a god or not, right? So you have to look
And
at the
atheism
entire.
isn't a worldview, so
It's not an ideology, right? It's well, maybe there could be an ideological atheist, but that's a different thing. So usually it would be like a secular humanism. Maybe it could be some form of Marxism because Marx is famous for being very anti-religious in his rhetoric and considers it sort of be like enslavement, where people are being controlled by the religions to enslave to the state and stuff like that, and to be able to remove the shackles, you must throw off religion. He famously says it's the opiates of the people, but that's Marxism. That's not atheism. He's saying you might say that a true Marxist is atheist, but a true atheist is not Marxist. That's like a division. Is that a division fallacy or is the other one? It doesn't matter. So it's sets. Like atheists might be in the Marxist, but there's plenty of Christians who are Marxists too. Oh my goodness, Maximiliano Villa with the 5 gifted memberships to KLWI, AR7 Cami, Regios, Brody Fisher, Tiffany Vinci. Enjoy your new channel memberships and emojis and all that neat stuff, and enjoy it. But I want to give it over to Simos Funk. That background noise is the thing telling me there's new members. So if you want to comment on the debate, if you saw it, please do. And if you want to answer this question, please do.
Both. The question is probably why I decided to click on the join link. But I did see some of the debate, not all of it. I saw most of the Q&A. Generally, my opinions were I thought it was two very intelligent people having an honest discussion, which is always a pleasure to witness, especially in the internet these days. I thought there were some, I thought Ben didn't hold Mohammed to account tight enough on the proposition Islam true, which seems to me there's a strong burden for the affirmative there to prove. And I don't think, relating to this question, that talking about politics or ethics are going to demonstrate the truth of the religion. So I would have liked to have heard, and maybe I just missed it and he did give it, I don't know. I would like to have heard which type of argument or which argument or types of argument he was giving to show the truth of the proposition that Islam is true, i.e. the claim that Allah is in fact the one creative being which rules mankind. through various systems. The rest of it to me is very much, I wouldn't say an irrelevance, but with my experience of Christianity and the number of different versions of Christianity and the types of apologetics that you get because of the number of different types of Christianity, it's like trying to, I don't know, nail rain to a wall or something, what type of Christian are you? Well, if you're a Calvinist, then maybe the problem of evil just disappears, and that maybe isn't a good argument. If you're a super universalist, then I think it probably does appear quite strongly as a falsifying factor. If you're a Trinitarian, maybe that's not a great, depends on what type of Trinitarian you are, I suppose. Maybe that's not such a great argument. So it's very much, it's very difficult, I think, to say just because one doesn't agree with the politics of a religion that shows it to be false. Just as I would say it's very true just to demonstrate the just because politics of other types of worldviews are wrong or perceived to be wrong, that shows your position of Islam to be true. That's also a fallacy as well. So the short answer, as you said, for straight away is no. You can show every other worldview that you know to be wrong, and it doesn't show that Islam is true. And so, in short, I'd like to have known which syllogism or which inductive or abductive argument he would give to show the truth of the proposition. And I'm not sure that was ever given. Maybe it was hinted at more than actually stated in a logical form, syllogism form, which we could show to be valid and then discuss as being sound. Does that kind of cover everything?
I think so. That I try to do
Right.
that with my openings, but I think I'll be more succinct. I try to. Sometimes I preamble a little bit, but and an argument doesn't have to be a formal syllogism to be a
No.
valid and sound argument. It could be just in regular English, as long as the conclusions follow from the premises. The premises don't have to be like premise 1, premise 2. It could be informally written, just to be clear.
It can, but I do find the clarity of showing that it is a valid argument is just stage one. If your opponent has to agree that it is a valid argument, then you've at least got some common ground then to work on to show why and support the premises to be true or not true, or at least there's somewhere to go, right? Well, which premise do you disagree with? If you think the conclusion is false, then please tell me which premise you think is false, right? And I think that's quite a good way to get through, at least cut through some of the red tape of semantic arguments, shall we say, which is, I think, a lot of what happened in this interesting discussion. It was an interesting discussion. And points, Mohammed brought up points which I hadn't really heard other Muslims say. So I was quite pleased that he was kind of delineating his view as being more Quranic than Hadithic, if that's even terms.
I think it's Quranic, right? Is that correct, Isa or Samir?
That's correct. Yeah, he
Okay.
takes a Quranic position.
Yeah.
So I want to go through some of these chats, and then I'll kick the floor to you, Samir. The Freedom House wants to point out that China is not atheistic. I would think most Chinese are Buddhist or something. Or I can't remember.
I
but a lot of them are atheists.
I meant during Mao.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter anyways, like to the argument. Like
I think it was it's an interesting position about atheism. It's like atheism really doesn't tell us anything. You can believe in fairies, you could believe in jinn, you can believe in supernatural beings and be an atheist. The only thing that you can't believe in as an atheist is that there's God or gods. All the other supernatural things are on the board. You could believe in all those things and still be an atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then Yeo says Islam's attempt to disprove Christianity just proves Islam cannot stand on its own merit. I mean, I don't think that's the case. You can say if Islam is true, then Christianity is false. Make an argument for why Islam is true, therefore Christianity is false. So that's not they both can't. Well, there's some apologetics, and I think he sort of tried to make that tonight, where he says, "Well, you're all sort of Muslim," and somebody had a question about that too, I believe. Like, what evidence is there for the Quran being eternal, coming from Robin? And maybe
But
we
could
could
I
talk
just say something
this.
about the last one?
Yeah,
Which is the tag argument, of course, uses the impossibility of the contrary to show the truth of the premise one in the tag argument, and that that necessitates showing that the other all other worldviews are false. So that would go along with that, and I think you kind of demonstrated that earlier when you said something about why he might have brought up Buddhism and reincarnation, and we brought up reincarnation to show if there was a conflict with Islam, then it would show Islam to be false. So,
right.
so there is some justification for that position, I think.
Okay, can Islam, Christianity both be true? We just answered that, I think. I think no, but I think there are some Muslims that would say sort of. Like, am I wrong on that, Samir?
That depends what you mean. Depends what you mean by the Trinity, doesn't it?
Yeah, but Samir and Isa, maybe since you're both Muslims, maybe you can answer this. Can a Christian go to heaven under Islam?
The Quran says it.
Yes, there is a hadith about a Jewish lady that passed away, and the Prophet told his companions that she is going to heaven because of a dog that she found starving out of water, and she used her shoe to collect some water for that dog and saved it.
Okay. So the teachings of Christianity could lead people to do things that are good. Like, so I save dogs, I save people, I think too. I help people. and
Yeah,
stuff.
but you don't believe,
I
which
don't
is the
believe in
biggest
the
thing.
God.
It doesn't make up. Making good doesn't make up for not believing. That I've asked that many times, trying to
Well-
find a loophole to get into heaven, but I'm doomed.
Well, what if there's a defect? Like, I have a defect that prevents me from believing in anything supernatural, like a God. What if, like, it's not my fault? It's a physical problem within my brain that prevents me from doing it. Will my acts get me to heaven under Islam?
Would God not know about that defect?
Yeah, he should.
Okay. Then if he is, then it cancels out the excuse.
It cancels out the excuse that he knows I have the defect.
Yes, because if God said that you were to believe, then he knows that he didn't make you with any defect that would make you not believe. But if otherwise he would not ask you to believe. He would not make you believe. So that argument based on what God is asking of you is out the door. And then just logically, you would know that you are capable of believing if you want. Like if you try, you are capable of believing. And then it brings up the odds. Like
I think you misrepresented my hypothetical then.
Yeah,
So
I'm sorry if I did.
Yeah, I'm saying it is a fact of the matter that I have a brain injury that prevents me from believing in a God, let's say specifically, or supernatural claims. I can only believe in things I can see, taste, touch, whatever. Let's just say that's true. God knows that's true. So yes, when you ask me if Allah would know that, of course he would know that because he's all knowing.
I think that would kind of fall under, at least from the conversations I've had with Muslims, that would kind of fall under the people that haven't received the message. So if you're not capable, if you haven't heard the message, it's not like you're denying God if it's biological. So I think in that case, you might be saved. But again, this is like my interpretation of what I've heard Muslims say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
there are
belief is
other
if
sides.
you don't,
Sorry, go ahead.
No, if you don't reject Muhammad, then you're not technically guilty of a sin in the way Christians think. You have to, for Christianity, you have to accept Jesus, right?
Mhm.
It's a positive claim, whereas with Islam, I think it's not such a positive claim that you have to accept Muhammad. But as long as you don't reject Muhammad and you come to believe that Allah is the creator, then that's fine as well. Which is, in some sense, deists fall into that category. So I
Yeah,
think there is.
there are other aspects.
Go ahead.
There are other aspects to be taken into consideration when it comes to this, but like I'm afraid I'm going to elaborate too much and take you guys off the topic. But just to name a couple, like very quick. Number one is that you're going against your nature that says that everything that exists must have something that caused someone or something that caused it to exist. Every cause has a causer. You're going against that natural the way of thinking. Also, on the other hand, you're going against the odds too, because let's say at the end we die and you are right, then I lose nothing. But if I'm right, you lose. So what would you take the case where you either lose or tie? When I take the case where I win or tie?
Pascal's wager, basically.
Yeah, and I don't see why is it fallacious? Well, no matter what they named
No,
it.
it's not fallacious.
Really
It's that
bad
we
argument.
don't find it compelling.
You don't find it compelling?
No.
And not all causes need to have a causer.
That is yet to be proven.
Okay.
You think that it has to have a physical being to make things happen?
Yeah, anything that happens, if like I said yesterday, if Christopher Columbus arrived in the United States, he hasn't seen any Native Americans yet, and they're walking in the woods. They just came off the ship. They're walking in the woods, and they found a wooden cabin. They wouldn't say we found a wild house. That's not natural.
Right, but people exist.
Yeah, I don't see how.
That doesn't follow.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah,
the watchmaker's
It's just the
argument.
watchmaker argument.
Yeah,
yes,
so the
but you would say that somebody built the house. One of
Well,
those
yeah,
people that
because
exist
people
built the house.
exist.
You would never say that it came to be. Just
I wouldn't say that fairies poofed it into existence. I
So
would
the
say that
problem you
somebody was
have-
probably here that built it. 'Cause we
yeah,
know
but
that
you're
people-
starting with fairies, which you know beforehand that they are a myth.
Well,
That's
let
my
me
point.
wait, there's a problem with this. Like, you're already presupposing that everything is created anyway.
Right.
So you're saying the tree is the same thing at the house, but then you're also saying, but there is something a little bit different between the tree and the house. Like, so you're accepting there is some type of intelligence that we can demonstrate and point to behind the house that you can't demonstrate and point to behind the tree. So
No, I can.
no, not without presuppositions that.
No presuppositions at all.
Well, then
Just
do it
be
without do it without
Okay.
presuppositions.
Okay,
Oh, what happened?
I just dropped out
problem.
for a second. Yeah.
Okay.
The
You're back now.
mathematical problem with the existence. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I interrupted someone.
No, you went off screen and came back. So
Okay.
so
Yeah,
you're going to presuppose something, and I'll tell you what it is. You're probably going to presuppose that there must be a intentional chain behind existence, and I reject that. But go ahead.
No, I'm gonna point out to the impossibility for anything existing, and I'll give you an example of that.
You're
It might be
presupposing
surprising.
there's a possibility, but go ahead.
Okay. No, I can prove the impossibility.
Okay.
Probably most of you don't know. You probably played cards. You probably played poker. Played I don't know 7-card stud or whatever. You probably never. Every time you shuffle a deck, you probably never assumed that the chances are almost impossible for that deck to have ever been in that exact order ever before.
Yes,
Yep.
that is true.
Okay, so let's look at the odds for that. To give you an idea of the odds, if there is someone shuffling a deck every second and some computer program shuffling a deck every second and writing the combination, the order of the deck every second, while the computer program is doing that, you take one step and you wait 1 billion years, and then you take another step and wait 1 billion years, and you keep doing that until you go around the Earth. Once you go around the whole Earth, then you take 1 spoon of water out of the Pacific Ocean.
I've heard
And-
this argument before. Get to the point.
Okay.
I can tell you your
Yeah, I
precept
would
right
like to
now,
tell it
but
to everyone
go
else,
ahead.
unless you object.
No. Go. Let him speak. Go ahead, Samir.
Okay, thank you. So I said, once you take that spoon of water out of the Pacific Ocean, you continue again 1 step and wait 1 billion years, 1 step and until the Pacific Ocean is completely empty, and then you put 1 sheet of paper on the ground and start over. And every time you empty the Pacific Ocean, you put another sheet of paper on the ground. And once the height of those sheets of paper reaches the sun 1,000 times, then you would be close to the odds of the number of possibilities that 52 factorial deck of cards could be. Now I'm asking you, what are the odds for 3 billion factorial? And that would be the number of atoms arranged in a certain way to make a single chromosome.
But you're presupposing that the way reality exists today must exist the way it does.
Right.
First of all, and
that probability
secondly,
is 100% because
because it happened, so
right.
the outcome is 1-to-1, and we don't know what the odds are because things don't combine randomly. Chemistry is a thing, physics are a thing, so things follow a natural order. You could argue like, well, God established that natural order, but that would be, there's no justification for that either without presupposing there must be some type of intention behind those laws. So when you're saying the odds of this are X, built into that are presuppositions that there is a randomness to all those things when not everybody believes that. You could see like the fine-tuning argument. Okay, what's the chances of this universe existing? We don't know because we don't know what the odds actually are, because those variables of the constants that we have for the nature of reality, we don't know if there's any variation between them. You could say, well, if we change the gravitational constant by 5%, we reduced it by 5%, we wouldn't have the planets like we do, like Earth wouldn't exist the way it does, or if it was increased by 5% the same way, that maybe life wouldn't happen at all.
I'm sorry, according to the current
you
theory.
But
Okay.
no, but the problem is you don't know if it is variable. Like, we don't know. So to claim you know the percentage from the start, all we know is that the universe has a moment in time where we can say, we think at this moment is when the universe started expanding. So that was something like, what, 13.8 billion years ago, I believe. And beyond that, before that, we don't know. We don't know what established those constants, if anything. That could just be the nature of some type of quantum theory that we just don't quite understand yet, because we don't have a full understanding of quantum gravity or anything like that. Maybe when we figure that out, we can figure out how all these constants arrive at. So you don't know. So you're presupposing that there is a randomness, and you're presupposing that we must exist. There's no reason for me to exist.
No. I'm sorry. I have to stop you here because you're saying I'm presupposing that there is a randomness. I'm actually refuting your case that all this came from a randomness.
I'm not saying it comes from randomness. So then you're just straw manning my position.
No, I'm okay. Explain to me how, because if there is no creator, then things must have randomly happened. Otherwise,
No,
there is
I
a
don't
creator.
agree with that. Why would I? Why is that a dichotomy? That's a false dichotomy.
Is that a third option?
Yes, that it didn't
Love to hear
happen
it.
randomly, that it didn't happen randomly, and there was no creator. That's the third option.
I'm honestly failing to understand that option,
There's
because
more than
either
three
something was made purposefully or randomly. I don't see somewhere between purposely and randomly.
Well, you're presupposing that things were made. I don't believe anything was made. So I believe everything has eternally existed in one form or another. So that's my worldview, my ontology. And I reached that conclusion by...
And you're just presupposing that analogy, right?
I have three presuppositions in my argument, yes. Besides logic and language.
Okay, how come you don't allow any for me then?
I do. I have no problem with presuppositions. The problem is with so when I'm critiquing your presuppositions, those are not presuppositions that I hold. So your conclusions from those presuppositions would never follow for me. So my presuppositions that I think are very humble are: I exist, the external world exists, causation is true, and that that's my three presuppositions, basically, besides logic and language and rationality and all the other stuff that we all have to be thinking creatures. But those are my presuppositions I hold as true. I honestly have no doubts that those things are true. So you can say I'm irrational for holding these things to be true. I think I can sort of justify them, like I'm warranted, because I can see my stinking hand. Like, how am I not warranted in believing it exists and that my outside world exists? Like, I experience it every day. So I believe I'm warranted in that. So now if I look at, so what is causation, right? And so every single example I have ever seen a causation in the world has been physical. Okay, so is that right? No, it doesn't mean it's right, but you can do a Bayesian analysis of like how many times have we measured something that was non-physical versus we measured something that was physical. We've never confirmed any non-physical thing. It used to be the case that we would say like mental processes were not physical, but now we've got better at that. We actually can do brain scans. People can look at an item and the AI can do a brain scan and tell you what you were looking at, make an image of what you're looking at. That's how far we've got into seeing how our brain is, in fact, physical. Now you can appeal to other things like
no, I'm just gonna appeal to the fact that all I have to say is, wow, now we're smart enough to just realize how these things work. We're not making anything work. We're just smart enough to begin to realize how some of these things work. So I don't see what would come from that. Like what would that lead to in the argument?
So physicalism, if everything is physical, and I'm thinking I'm justified into believing that everything is physical. And I love Quentin Smith's argument, if you're not familiar with it. When people ask the question, why does something exist instead of nothing? He said, because something existed prior. So we know, so basically it goes like this. Something exists right now. Why does something exist right now? Because something existed, the potential for what existed right now existed before, like in the prior form. So I just go that it's either all the way back to turtles or it's all the way back to some physical thing that is eternal. So say it's some like quantum foam or field, like T-Jump argues. I'm not making a claim to what it is, but I do believe I'm justified in believing that is either it's turtles all the way back for physical causation and some type of cosmological models. And there are several cosmological models that do posit those things like conformal, cyclical, CCC, and big bounce, big crunch. There's lots of theories, hypotheses for physical explanations for an eternal past and an eternal future. So I'm not saying any of them are true. Really quick. Well, not really quick. I'm sorry. So I think I'm justified in believing that everything is physical. From that, I can get to an understanding of reality. So we've come up with these theories like relativity, expansion, and I think I can justify those things because it's so just very, very basic. My argument is everything has a form, right? So the whole universe is a form, and the universe, I'm just saying in this case, is just everything that exists. It's reality. If there's some cosmos, and okay, then we could just call it the cosmos, everything that exists. And it seems like because change or causation is true, that form is always in continuous change. It just seems like that is just true. So I can go from the beginning of expansion and say like that form of me is just evolved or changed. I hate using evolved because people can misconstrue that. That form of matter and energy and fields has just reconfigured, recombined, become more complex through the forces that we have, like gravity and stuff like that, to become heavier, denser atoms and stuff. Where eventually it forms like our star, our solar system, our planet. Eventually, life starts on our planet at some point, and then eventually my parents were born, and then they gave birth to me through this natural process. Now, from that, what am I? Well, I would just say my identity is that natural form that went through this process from expansion. How am I justified into believing anything, and what am I? I think I am what constitutes me physically. I believe I am what I believe I am, and I think there's something to how other people interpret who I am, that I could be wrong about my own personal perception that I am who I am. Other people can be wrong about their perception of me, but it seems like I am something in between those things, that state, those two things. Now, am I justified into believing anything is true? And then I would go back to my first precepts and my other arguments. But
Well,
Oh,
first of all,
God.
I feel guilty for kind of hijacking a little bit the conversation, so I apologize to everyone. I'm just going to ask a simple, innocent question, and I'm going to leave it at that. So let's remove the labels. Let's remove the label of something called a religion, something called a science. Let's just say we are here and there are things around us, and we are trying to investigate how these things came to be. Now, would you say that every hypothesis is valid, except for one that says that someone made these things?
Well, is every hypothesis true? No.
No, just valid, like not true, just valid.
Is like valid goes to like the structure of an
Valid
argument.
as you're allowed to say it. You're allowed to say this was quantum fluctuations, this was evolution, this was this was that, except for one hypothesis that would tell you that someone made these things. We are in this universe and we're trying to investigate what happened.
So I'm not saying that you can't presuppose like there's some intention behind causation, right? You can presuppose that, but I don't. So I don't go that far. So I would say I value the law of parsimony. Most people know it as Occam's razor, but law of parsimony. So it means the fewer entities I have to presuppose in my worldview, I believe is more virtuous, is more valuable. And I think I only have 3, like in my presuppositions in my worldview for my ontology, that lead me to I exist, that build, like, how do I know that everything's physical? It's just 3 things that I cannot justify without presupposing they're true. So does that mean that any hypothesis is true? No, absolutely not. Does that mean that there's only one that will be true? Now the question is, which one is true? So I would say my worldview is more satisfactory because I have to appeal to less things. And I think I can justify morality with it. I can justify purpose with it. And all these other things that people say you can't justify, I believe I can, because I believe we're psychological beings. I believe we evolved to be who we are. I believe we're motivated to do certain things. And we do studies and stuff like that. We do studies in morality and psychology. We can do MRI imagings like I described, and we can sort of understand all this stuff. So I don't see how I don't have a complete worldview just with my 3, I think, very humble presuppositions.
No, I disagree, but honestly, I feel guilty for hijacking the conversation, so I'm gonna stop talking and allow everyone else the chance to get back in. Sorry, everyone.
I think it was a good discussion. If anybody else have anything to say, or
Well, on that
I-
particular point, I do. But go ahead, Max. Sorry.
I have a couple of questions for Samir. And I mean, if you want, we can go on to something else. But if you're willing, I have a couple of questions. Would you say dogs have souls?
Yes.
Okay. So you wouldn't have a problem with the idea of a dog acting in a moral way, right?
No, because in my belief, a dog is not being tested.
by
By
God.
God?
A dog does not have a frontal lobe. In the Quran, it talks about that every beast God has taken their frontal lobe, and in neurology, it was discovered that the frontal lobe that we have is responsible for lying and being wrong. This is something that we do. Animals do not do that, and I'll give you an example of that. A tiger, I watched a documentary where a tiger would walk like right next to a herd of gazelles or whatever. I'm not sure what is the name, how they say, because there is, you can say a herd, you can say a school, you can say a flock. I'm not sure what they say about gazelles. If anyone know, you can help me.
Don't worry.
So the tiger would lift his tail up in the air, letting them know that he's not hunting, and the gazelles would not run away. And I've also watched other documentaries where the tiger would actually is only able to make like 3 runs before he starves to death if he doesn't catch anything, because he would be so tired, and he can't order DoorDash, so he's gonna starve to death. So never raise his tail and then attack the animals, because he does not cheat, he does not act outside of his nature.
Right. But for example, we can teach our dogs, even though I don't think they have soul. I don't think anything has a soul, right?
I
We
think you
can
already
teach
said
our
keyword.
dogs.
We can teach.
Yes, but we also as humans have to learn. And let's take you and me, for example. Our morality is very different just based on where we were born and when we were raised. So we have very naturalistic explanations for this, for all of these behavioral things like morality, which I see as something more biological and behavioral inclined, right? So we can teach a dog, and the dog can understand what is good and what is bad. And in none of that, I have invoked a god. Why don't you think that that is the more appealing view when we have the explanations like right there for us?
Which explanations?
What I just said, that you can teach a dog what you think, what you personally think that is good and it's bad. So when the dog bites your couch and you go, "Hey, dog," he already knows that he did something bad.
But that's not what we mean by good and bad. You're just reification. It's a reification. I don't know what fallacy it is.
No, there is. Okay, I can help you with an example if you want.
Sure.
So let's say it's the Great Depression, and everybody's out of work. People are struggling, and the government is just hiring people. They're giving people jobs where you would go break some stones or whatever, and then you would get paid. And we're taking turns. This week, it's your turn to go to work. So you went to work. You came back with some money. You shopped some groceries. You knocked on my door. You came with 2 bags of groceries. You handed me one, and you said, "Here, friend, this one is for you. You have kids." It warmed my heart. I was so happy. We ate. Next week, it's my turn. I went to work, came back with 2 bags, but I hid until like midnight. I didn't want you to see me. And then I snuck into my house. You came and knocked on my door and you said, "My kids are starving." And I said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you. I'm not going to work for another month." So now, is there any human law that says what I did was wrong? No. With like But we, both of us, I wouldn't even use the religion. Both of us know inside us, in that natural scale for what is right, what is wrong. We both know that I was wrong. And if you ask anyone in the world, no matter where they were brought up, they're gonna say I was wrong.
Not everybody.
Not
Like,
necessarily.
There are psychopaths that don't like
Yeah.
evaluate right and wrong. They're
No,
rule
they might
followers.
ignore it, but they know I was wrong.
No,
No.
there's
You can go to a gang and they would still would steal and would rob people and rape or whatever, but they know they won't do it to each other. They know if they do it to each other, it would be wrong.
that doesn't make them
That's
psychopaths.
biological. And that's biological. It's like your group, you form a bond, biological and psychological. You form a bond with your group, and with them, you have a set of rules that you don't have with the others. You create a separation.
That doesn't make them moral. So I would call
No,
them.
yeah, I know.
Okay, but that doesn't mean so a group of gang members doesn't mean they're psychopaths. They can know intellectually that what they're doing is bad to other people. They just don't care because people do bad things because like care about the consequences of doing the bad thing, even though they know it's bad. Some people do not know it's bad. Some people only believe a thing is bad if it violates the law. We call them psychopaths. They don't have the intuition that most humans do to evaluate what goodness is and badness is when it comes to morality. And they are taught to avoid suffering as children because, like Max brought up, they were punished if they did something against the rules. So they learned that as bad. Not everyone has that. We have done studies of children, like around the 3rd grade or 1st to the 3rd grade, where they would ask the children, like the scenario is like one of the students is standing up in class. There's a rule against during book reading time. There's a rule in class against standing up. Was Tommy a bad kid because he stood up during book reading class? Most of the children said yes, Tommy was a bad kid for breaking the rule because you have to follow the rules. So that's rule conformity. And then they asked the students, okay, now imagine the rule is that you can stand up if you want to. There's no rule against standing up in class during book reading time. Tommy stands up. Now, is Tommy bad? And most of the kids said, no, Tommy's not bad because he's not violating the rule. So this is rule conformity. Yes, again, people saying good and bad based on the conforming to the rules. So now they would ask, now during book reading time, it's a rule that you cannot pull somebody's hair. So this time Tommy pulls the girl's hair and they asked him if it's bad. Almost everybody's like, yeah, it's bad. Of course it's bad. Because more of the children said it was bad than in the previous one where he broke the rule for standing up. So now we're getting into something that's a little different from rule conformity. Then they said, okay, now it's not a violation of the rule to pull the girl's hair in class during book reading time. And Tommy reached over and pulled her hair during book reading time, but doesn't break the rules. Is it bad? Most of the kids said, yes, it's bad. It's bad to pull somebody's hair in book reading class, even if it's not against the rules.
And do you know why they say that?
Because they have an intuition that it's bad to harm
That's
other
the
people.
scale I'm talking about. That is
Yeah,
exactly the scale that I'm
but
talking about, to
not-
differentiate between right and
Correct.
wrong.
But not all the kids said it was bad. A certain percentage of the children said it wasn't bad because he wasn't breaking the rules. So some people are psychopaths. They're rule conformists. If they can get away with the breaking the rules, they will. So this is the point. So not everybody had that intuition that it was bad to pull the girl's hair in class.
People will take whatever they can get away with, and
Not everybody. I just pointed it out. I just pointed it out.
No, I'll
Most
give
of
you an
the kids-
example that I'll give you a
most
quick
of the
example.
kids- Wait, they could have got away with pulling her hair. They could have got away with it, pulling her hair, but they chose not to because they knew it was still bad. So not everybody will just try to do stuff to get away with it. It's just not true. But go ahead.
Okay, I'll give you an example. I remember it was a time where some players in the NBA were punished for not standing up for the Pledge of Allegiance, and they were against saying God in the Pledge of Allegiance. And then the NBA was like really sanctioning these players. And then at one point they decided, you know what, we're not going to do this anymore. They are free. If they want to say God, they can say God. If they want to stand up, they want to stand up. If they don't, they have the freedom. So you would think, okay, that solves the problem. And then it created a new category that says, okay, now that you gave me what I wanted, now I'm offended that you are standing up and you are saying God in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I don't want you to say God in the Pledge of Allegiance. So at which people would just take what they can get away with. They will always ask for more. That has nothing to do with what is right, what is wrong. Because if you ask me what is right, yeah, I believe they are right. If they don't want to say God, yeah, that's their right. This is truly what I believe. But do I believe that they're right to make me not say God in the Pledge of Allegiance? I don't believe that they are right.
So, and Tim, I didn't quote the study perfectly, Tim Bob, but you can find the paper on empathy tests in children and stuff like that. And okay, so you're talking about right or wrong about staying in the Pledge of Allegiance because it's under I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, that one. I've said it that way my whole life. But I think there's an under God there somewhere. I forgot it.
One nation under God, indivisible.
Okay. I always forget that part. One nation.
Not enough vacation Bible school for you, Ozian. Come on now.
You feel
I stopped using that when I was a kid, dude, because it felt like I was supposed to say amen at the end of it. But I was a rebel atheist my whole life, so whatever. But let's go back to that. So now, when we talk about disgust, okay, there's this concept of rule following and disgust. So a lot of people in America in particular believe that God exists. And they believe if you don't offer some type of subservience to God or like respect to God, that you are being bad. But it doesn't necessarily trigger like an anger response, like a moral outrage. It triggers more like a moral disgust because you're disobeying the will of God. So that a lot of people in their heads believe that if you don't respect God, you are being bad. But it's typically a disgust bad response and not an anger bad response. There is some overlap between certain anger bad and disgust bad. And you can read these papers where they've done MRI imaging now, MRI imaging, to see which part of the brain fires off, whether it's disgust or anger. Now, not with these specific questions, so they can do that. This type of stuff is based on surveying mostly, so it's people self-reporting in controlled surveys, studies to try to determine what people actually believe. So going back to that, so there are people that believe when you violate the will of God, like let's say gay marriage or something like that, gay marriage triggers a disgust response more than it does an anger response. Whereas like harming a child,
it triggers a different response for me.
Well, okay, that's fine. But harming a child in a lot of people triggers an anger response depending on the type of harm they cause versus the disgust response. So it seems like humans respond to them differently. So going back to the Pledge of Allegiance. So yes, if people believe you're disrespecting God, or like if people believe you're forcing them to respect something they believe is false, they're going to feel like their freedom is being restricted.
Which I agree with.
Yeah. So restriction of freedom is harmful. So I would say, yes, I would say the response is correct when it comes to like moral outrage. Then you got the Christians who think disrespecting God is bad and under a disgust.
No, I would like you to talk about the other part of the Pledge of Allegiance. Once they were granted the right not to say God or stand up if they don't want to, Now they are complaining that others are standing up, or others are saying one nation under God. And they say they shouldn't say that. We want to remove that from the Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah. So there's
Are you just
people
saying
who,
if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile? I mean, that's like this thing that people say that's probably sometimes true and sometimes not. I mean, I agree that sometimes happens. I don't know if it's a truism all the time.
well, there are people that believe that Christianity is harmful, and any recognition of belief in God harms other people, harms our culture and our society. So they believe it. I think they're wrong. I don't believe they can necessarily tie those connections together. There are some religious beliefs that do seem to, like bans against gay marriage and stuff, that do cause harm to people and society that you can justify as being immoral, prescriptions of their religious faith, whereas saying throwing the entire baby out with the bat or whatever, throwing the entire
So doesn't that
baby
bring
out
the
with the
intention for
bathwater.
one group to want to cancel the other?
no, they shouldn't. Can't. No, they should. Go
There's
ahead.
another
Simon.
point in here, which is secularism, which is to do with the wall between states and religion. And, you know, some people may be saying, and I don't know if this is the case you're referring to, but it sounds similar to some of the arguments I've heard, which is the preference of one religion over another in the public sphere should not be endorsed. And that's just purely a secular thing.
Well,
And that's not
I
to
feel-
deny anybody's religion, of course, or deny anybody the right to
Okay.
practice their religion.
So-
but it's just
So
in the
if I
public
remove the
sphere.
preference, I'm sorry, I'll give one example that is like easier for you to comment on. Okay, in my city, like in downtown, the highest building, they color the building with these lights. Sometimes it's purple, sometimes it's green, sometimes it's. So in the Pride Month, they do all Pride colors. So now, let's say the high priest of my city comes and asks, he says, well, for Christmas or for Easter, I want to have a cross on the building. How do you think the response to that will be? And should there be any negative response?
I'll let Simon Sander answer.
Is
I
it
speak to that.
is it a public or private space?
Public building.
Well, in that case, you should not be endorsing one religion over another under the
So
Constitution. I believe.
you're against the pride colors shining over the building for 1 month?
Is the gay rights a religious doctrine?
No, but it's a belief of one group,
So it
and
doesn't-
and
so
it's
it doesn't. Just saying, the point
of a
about,
minority, I should say,
separation
too.
of state, the point about separating state and religion is not to endorse one religion over another. If you're not talking about a religion, then you're not talking about the same thing that I'm talking about.
Yeah, but you have like 80-90% of the city celebrating Easter.
Easter is a religious celebration, correct?
No, but why would
Oh.
it bother them to see a cross on there for 1 day?
Because it's Christianity, which is a religion.
In the U.S., we can do this. We can do we can do religious public displays on government property for Easter, for Christmas, and stuff like that. There's no problem with that as long as you don't discriminate between what religion you allow to put a public display up. So as long as you allow the Satanists and the Muslims and the Hindus to put their own public displays up at the town hall or whatever for these holidays, for these different groups in the United States, there's no problem with that. But as soon as the government has a preference between which religious groups they allow to put up displays and which ones they don't, then it's a problem in the United States. So the establishment clause, at least in the United States, is that. But there is an argument to be made that let's just not allow any religious displays up. But then it gets to the point, well, what's religion? Like people will say, well, if you endorse gay marriage, you're being anti-religious. So that's an anti-religious display. So you're actually doing it so they can make the same. So you can just make the claim that public's like town halls or whatever, but it does take a public park. People rent out public parks to do religious events, do all types of events. I don't think you can discriminate. Like you get down a slippery slope, like you're going to discriminate groups based upon something like their culture, their beliefs. I
Mm.
don't think you should do that either.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I've thought a lot about this. It's not only in the religion; it's in a lot of topics. But I don't want to. Honestly, I don't want to hijack your life. You guys have been so kind to me, letting me talk for so much. So I honestly ask you to get back to your topic, so I don't feel guilty anymore.
I just want to go through the chats, and then I
All right.
think it sort of get close. I want to say close out because everybody's going to bail. But oh yeah, so skeptics and scoundrels. I think he brought up. There's 4 options. There's either a creator or no creator, and this goes back to the previous conversation. And it's either random or not random. So you can have a creator that created something not random, or randomly. You can have a no creator that created it, that caused it randomly or not randomly. So technically there'd be 4 options. Now, to try to explain how something can do something randomly, I think is challenging, but it is like logically consistent that there would be 4 options there. So thank you so much for that, Eric.
I'm still struggling to see how a non-creator made something not randomly.
Laws of physics, not random. Like it could only be that way.
No, because then it would presuppose the laws of physics, which would bring
No.
us to another long conversation.
No, it doesn't presuppose laws of physics. It would just be an ontological claim that these laws of physics just are true, and this is why things are the way they are. So it's not it's not necessarily a presupposition, because I could justify the laws of physics with my 3 presuppositions that I stated before. And yeah, we do have a super chat really quick. Robin Webster, $5. That is called the plastic reindeer rule. Okay, so what we were talking about with public displays, the U.S. was based on reason, not religion. Okay. We are not one nation under God. That was added in like 1956, I think, to like our currency.
Oh, to the currency.
And
Yeah.
God,
Early
and God we
50s, yeah.
trust. Yeah.
Hmm.
And that was Catholics, I want to say, that, or it was a religious group that petitioned to get it added. And same thing for the Pledge of Allegiance. It was sometime around the same period of time that stuff was added. And it's, you could say like it was a Cold War thing. Like, we're not going to be those dirty atheistic Marxists there in Russia, commies.
It is in the Constitution, though, right? But it was
No.
referring to inalienable rights, right?
So the First Amendment of the Constitution says that they will not, the government will not establish a religion,
Right.
not.
No, I was
now I need to
referring
look
to
it
the
up.
one nation under God,
Oh no, that's not in the Constitution or anything like that. That's
isn't it?
no.
Maybe I'm thinking of the
the-
Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence. He doesn't say that either. All men are endowed by their Creator with these unalienable rights. So Thomas Jefferson he wrote that. He had help, but but Creator is used sort of. Thomas Jefferson famously took the Bible and removed all references to miracles, the New Testament, and just made references to Jesus. What Jesus supposedly said is sort of like lessons to learn. So, like he definitely was some type of deist or something.
Yeah,
but
yeah, that was my understanding. Deism was very popular back then.
And he does say Creator, even though people use that word to mean God too.
Fair
yeah,
enough.
Thomas Jefferson also has his own copy of the Quran, and it's all highlighted in still in the Library of Congress.
Oh, wonderful.
A man of books.
Yeah,
If
there's
I
a
could
book
just
called
point out
Thomas
one thing
Jefferson.
as well, which is what Samir was saying earlier. Ozian gave a very full definition of his position, which was, fantastic. But your position relied on saying the presuppositional argument of saying that all other worldviews are false. And you said, look, his work. I can't understand why his worldview isn't false because you can't see why you can create, you could have a universe which is randomly created. Okay, I think that's a very quick summation of what you were saying. And if that is true, then it is beholden of you to show a contradiction in Ozian's worldview, not from your own presuppositions of assuming, just because you don't understand how it could be done, that it can't be done. You would have to show, using Ozian's presuppositions himself, that his worldview holds a contradiction. Just to point that out, that there's a slight logical fallacy going on there. When you try to show the impossibility of the contrary, you actually have to demonstrate using somebody else's worldview. You have to do an internal critique of their worldview. And that obviously is very difficult to do with something as comprehensive as Ozian's worldview. I didn't hear a contradiction within his worldview myself, you know. Does that make sense to me?
Dr. J read my book, so did he notice any contradictions in my obvious contradictions, or no?
In the listening to your book, I did not notice a lot of any obvious contradictions that I was not really trying to be super big jerk about reading it, or didn't read it really slow and carefully. I thought it was finely thought out, Ozian. I thought you did a decent job.
Thank you. I try to be very humble in some of my claims too, and try to say in some of my positions are weak, and I explain when I think they're weak positions. But we don't have any evidence to the contrary. But I can understand why people would reject some of my positions. Just
Yeah,
You're mute.
Simos, I
muted,
honestly
Simos.
didn't understand. If
Oh,
if you would like go over it again. Sorry, my brain is just.
Okay. It's just a logical position or entailment of what I believe to be your position. Whether it was or not, I'm not certain.
Okay.
Which is to say that if you wish to show that everybody else's worldview is impossible, okay, and therefore your worldview is correct, which is basically something which a lot of presuppositionalists use as an argument. It's behoving you not to say that their position is incorrect based upon your presuppositions, but their worldviews are false based upon their own presuppositions. And that's the difference between what's called an internal critique and an external critique.
Okay, and you didn't hear me try to make both?
I didn't hear you, no. I didn't hear you point
Okay.
out a contradiction in Ozian's worldview using his presuppositions, which
Okay.
is what you would have to do to show that that was definitely incorrect.
Okay. So number one, I did not try like to force my position on him, or basically what I've done. If you remember when I asked this question, I asked him, why would you, like, if you remove the word science and the word religion altogether, we are just here and we're just trying to investigate where all this came from. Would it be logical to completely dismiss the hypothesis that someone or something made all this?
I'm not sure that Ozian was doing that.
Okay.
I mean,
Because
I don't do that even as a
okay,
strong
because
atheist. I
because
don't
to
do
be atheist, atheist, you have to do that. To be
No,
agnostic, you don't.
no,
you don't.
no.
To be
If you
agnostic, you don't.
no, let me clarify. So my justification for my worldview that I believe is true means that a theistic world is not true.
Could you say the last bit of that again? I didn't hear you.
I didn't catch it either.
Maybe I muted. I don't know. So, as I'm a naturalist, so my argument I presented, if true, means that God does not exist.
Yeah, but you haven't proven your position to be true. They're all hypotheses at this point.
I did prove it to be true. I proved it to be true based upon my axioms. So I don't know how you could claim I didn't prove it to be true.
No, I actually proved that it was impossible, which was the second part to my answer of my answer to Simos.
No,
I
proving to be
actually,
impossible means you have to show an internal contradiction within my axioms and my claims. You didn't do that.
yeah, that was like the last part. I was trying to, honestly, I was trying to hurry because I didn't want to be
Well, I
a
understand.
burden on
But
on the
what
group. And
Could
you're not.
okay,
could you just say very briefly and as quickly as possible what the contradiction is, what the P and not P is within Ozian's worldview?
okay. The universe is not old enough to entertain the odds of any, not all, any of this happening. The universe is not old enough. You remember the example I gave you with the cup, with the
I do,
spoons of
yes,
water
yeah,
and that?
yeah.
The
I think
universe is not
fallacious,
is
though.
not
That is
50.
that is
The,
fallacious.
the universe is
That-
not 52 factorial seconds old.
Not
Sure.
what I asked, though. I asked for he's asking for the internal contradiction within my worldview. You're explaining why my worldview is false because you believe your worldview is true. He's asking you to show the internal contradiction within the claim I made. And I don't hear that when you say that. I reject what you're saying as being true.
Okay.
It's,
Okay. Well, here's the contradiction. The contradiction is based on things that you have you have said in the past, and I'll name a few. Yesterday, you told Ross that the burden of proof is not only on the positive side but also on a negative side. That's
Yeah.
number one. Number two, you also said, "Oh God, I'm so sorry." Like I'm
part of what I said.
shooting blanks. Yeah, I'm shooting blanks here. So there are things that you've said in the past that I feel like you don't apply them in every scenario. Like if you applied those burdens of the science, that's the second thing. I'm sorry, the science. Like when we were talking with Isa about the science, and you say, why would you put your religion in a position where if any of the science changes, then everything you claim is not true? So how could you base an absolute truth on a science that is not absolute, that is full of hypotheses?
Well, I'm not appealing to science in my worldview. So
I
science,
mean, you gotta appeal to science at some point
but it's not
in
part
a
of
natural
my.
world.
It's not part of my. No, I don't. It's not part of my ontology. The science is epistemology. It's how I know things. My ontology is does not include science. I'm not a scientismist or scientismistic. Fucking Leo told me what the proper word is. I need to.
It's not even a
remember.
word. No, forget about that completely.
Yeah.
It's
So
not
I'm
even
not
a thing.
appealing to science when I say this. So let me make it more clear. My worldview has, I believe, epistemic humility. It allows us to explore the world. My worldview embraces knowledge. And so my morality I believe I have an axiom for morality too. And I believe it's an emergent property of humans and psychology. And I believe it's true as an axiom, and it's mind independent and fact dependent. So in that case, if it's true, it's objective. It's outside of mind. So that's another argument we could have. And I can use empiricism to discover the elements within my axiom for morality. But I'm taking a very humble position when I make these claims. I never with science and stuff. If you heard my arguments yesterday when I was having the conversation with Ross, I didn't appeal to science. I appealed into a model that can explain the observations we make. I never made the claims that the models themselves were in fact true.
No, but you can't avoid. I'm sorry. This is where you cannot avoid the science. For example, the laws of physics, the quantum, the things where things will come from for the universe to happen. They are all called science. Whether you want to use the science as the knowledge or the fact of how things are.
But when did I appeal to quantum anything in my ontology? I didn't.
No, but universe has to come from somewhere, because beyond the philosophy, the universe has still to come from somewhere.
No, it doesn't. Why is that the case?
Because it's here.
It's here. Yes.
So the question is, where did we come from? Where did everything come from? I mean, it has
Okay,
it
I
has to
believe
get.
I don't
Yeah.
believe anything can come from something. Everything that exists must have been in a previous form. Must have been in a previous state. Must have been. So the universe. So when I say, if we just want to call it reality rather than the universe, so we don't have any type of conflation or equivocation fallacies, where we're talking about every stage of reality. That's everything that exists. If that's the universe, if it's the cosmos, it doesn't matter. Based upon my experience of reality, everything's physical, and everything is just a change of form. And as far as I know, it's all energy, matter, and fields. I could be wrong, but it doesn't matter. Like, and that we can't create this stuff. If it can't be created, like, and it must have, then it must have always been eternal. If it's always existed, then it's always existed in some previous form. And appealing to a break. So when you appeal to a God, you're saying there was a moment when the first form, the stuff that made up the first form, didn't exist. So you're saying, you're the one appealing to this gap, to say we went from this God to the first form. Out of what? Out of what? What did God make the first form of reality out of? If you're going to say God's outside of reality, which to me is unintelligible, like makes no sense. God either has to be part of reality or doesn't exist. But we won't go there. What are we made out of?
So basically, if we are inside the computer, you're wondering how could it be possible that someone made the first pixel?
No, I'm not asking that. What is the substance of us? The fundamental substance of reality. What are we made out of originally? What are we made out of? I don't mean me as a human, I mean reality, the universe. What are we made out of?
Okay, we are made out of matter.
Where did that come from?
Okay.
Fundamentally, what are we then?
Okay, you know that infinities are not possible in the material world.
Who gives a shit? Has matter eternally existed?
No.
Then what were we made out of? What was matter made from?
Okay, these are the answers that you would love to die and find out, how God in his world can create something from nothing, make something begin to exist.
That's impossible. In my worldview,
Why?
that is impossible, that you can create something from nothing, because the concept is unintelligible. It doesn't make any sense. There's a contradiction there to say that the absence of something became something. How is that possible?
No, that is, look, I'm going to tell you. You are
Good, I want to know.
You are confusing a material world with God's absolute world. Let's say call it this way. That's why I gave you the example of the pixel. If we are pixels inside the computer, we can only think all the way up to the first pixel that appeared on the screen. We don't know that there is a person behind the keyboard that is responsible for these pixels to happen, or for the computer to happen in the first place.
So you
and we cannot, and the pixels cannot say that the computer is eternal.
So you can't know.
They can't know, so we can't know.
But you can't know. You can't know if there's a God.
No.
Yes. That's what you just said. That's your analogy.
No, that's not what I said. That's not what I said.
Well, then we can know. If there's somebody at the keyboard.
No, we can't dismiss the possibility that someone is at the keyboard. We can entertain every hypothesis, but we cannot logically dismiss the option that there is a keyboard and there is someone at the keyboard.
I didn't dismiss it. It falls under my worldview.
That's
the difference between atheism and agnosticism.
Samir, just going back to the definition of atheism again, that's semantic. I think you'll find most atheists don't believe they can falsify unfalsifiable propositions. And that's what you're asking. That's what you're insisting that the atheist position is. And it just isn't any atheist that I know.
Even Graham Oppie wouldn't argue he wouldn't argue that he could falsify a God. He would argue that naturalism is true, therefore, and justify naturalism. Naturalism is true, therefore God does not exist. So that's when you're talking to philosophical atheism, that's normally most of their arguments. They pose a worldview that is more virtuous. Virtuous mean it follows like the law of parsimony, Occam's razor, not that it's better. They value it more than any other worldview, basically. So if their world is true, it must be the case that yours is false. So they're not saying that you don't have rational justification for your worldview, and I'm not saying you don't have rational justification to believe that a God exists. But to get me to believe that a God exists, you must show an internal contradiction for my worldview. And I'm not seeing it. I have not heard it. I hear people that try to stryman my position because my claims to like science, I am very humble when it comes to science. I take a pragmatic approach when it comes to science. I believe it's true. It's the best explanation for our understanding of the nature of reality right now, and it's subject to change. Would I have believed Einstein when he first published his paper? No. Would I have believed him in like 1915, whenever the Eddington thing was?
15
Maybe,
he published, I think 21. It was shown. Edison showed,
probably.
or
Okay.
maybe 1919.
Yeah.
But I mean, 1916 or 17, Hilbert gave solutions to the equations, and I think there would have been at least the first rational justification for believing it to be true.
Yeah, I probably would have needed some experimentation and testing to go from Newtonian to Einstein. But because I'm not like in the game, right? Like Einstein might have been justified. I'm not. So I could believe false things are pragmatically true and just be wrong. And that's, who cares? Like I can live my life that way. But I want to know what's true.
Can I just butt in here? So me, you did offer one possible contradiction, of course, which was that it's so statistically unlikely to happen naturally. I think this was the gist of your argument, even if it wasn't said directly. It's so under a naturalistic system, it's virtually impossible, to the point being impossible. So we have good reason to believe that there must have been some other solution for the creation of the universe. I think that was where you were going with it, was it?
Yes, and every other explanation so far is failing to explain in any other way.
And that's the problem, right? When you add on that last little bit, that's an issue, because you're then saying that yours can't be right because of my presuppositions, and it's your presuppositions that have worked out these values, right? You worked out these values given some presuppositions about the way you think the odds of the universe arriving in this particular state are, okay? And other people may disagree that you came to those statistics, right, through a rational process even, right? I think there is some serious fallacies in the way you arrive at your statistics, okay? So I'm just saying that those are your presuppositions that are criticizing Ozian's worldview. And as we've explained, that's called an external critique. And there's no way you can show a contradiction within his worldview by using an external critique. You have to do an internal critique in order to show a contradiction. And a contradiction is the only way you could show his worldview to be impossible. So I hope that fleshes out the steps of logic that you've just gone through and shows you where the mistake is.
No, I can flip the burden and ask you to show me outside of the theory, outside of the philosophy, and just the kalam, the words.
It's logic.
Show me.
Outside the philosophy. This is logic we're talking about.
Okay.
So
show me how it would apply.
If you deny logic, then there is no conversation.
No. I don't deny the logic. I'm actually appealing to logic the whole night.
Okay, let me do it then. I would just ask you this: do you believe that you exist?
Yes.
Okay. Do you believe the external world exists?
Of course.
Do you believe causation is true?
Yes.
Do you believe that I have justification to believe that everything we experience in the external world is through physical causation?
Yes, and everything has a causation.
There you go. Like,
No,
so
everything
now
has. What? Don't forget the last point. Everything has a causation.
I agree.
Well,
Okay.
hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. That's not what the first premise of the Kalam says, though.
Everything that began to exist has a cause. So I actually reject that. Everything that begins to exist has a cause, but it doesn't mean that the first thing that began to exist couldn't existed acausally, which means randomly, or come to exist through a deterministic way through some physical thing. And it doesn't mean there's not a cause or an effect that, or a potential form that isn't internal. So you could have something that didn't ever begin to exist. So when I say causation is true, I'm not saying every single form had a previous cause. It could be the case, but I'm not leaving that out, that there couldn't be a first form versus an infinite turtles all the way back. I understand the contradictions or the problems with conceptualizing an infinite eternal past. I understand that, but if you just presuppose B theory of time is true, where all moments in time like eternally exist, then you don't have that problem, even though people don't want to accept that. You're muted, Simus.
I don't know of any contradiction as yet which has been shown for an infinite regress. I don't know of one personally. If you do know of one, please let me know. But I've studied William Lane Craig's version of even under a theory of time. There's still no contradiction. Otherwise, there couldn't be an eternal future, which is, of course, one of the religious beliefs. They believe in heaven being eternal, so that wouldn't be possible if there couldn't be an infinite regress.
Yeah,
just by symmetry,
So the problem now you got, Samir, you've granted my 3 axioms are true, and you've granted my my a posteriori knowledge of everything being physical, causation. So, and then everything else I claim, nice turtles all the way down, maybe. Every other claim that I make follows from those things. So how could you? Where's the see, that's what we're saying. So now I've justified my worldview to you. You could say, well, it's not fulfilling enough. I think you need more.
No, it's the infinite regress. That's the problem.
But I didn't.
It's something that you can't prove. It's just something that you can assume.
I never appealed to infinite regress. I said it could be turtles all the way down, or there could be an eternal first form of physical.
Whenever you stop, that's God.
So that it would be physical, though. So, and no mind, because mind is an emergent property of physical things. It's a more complex system.
No, I'm sorry. Let me disagree with you here.
Well, you can presuppose that the first form must have mind. We're talking about the internal consistency.
No, because the result has order. Order does not come from chaos. Order does not come from chaos.
Second law of thermodynamics.
That is not true either, I'm afraid.
No mind.
Listen, Samir, just to point this out, right? Because maybe I've tried to make it explicit to you where the fallacy is in your reasoning, but let me just say completely. What you are assuming is a probability distribution of the values of the constants themselves. All right, you are presuming there's an even distribution of probability between any value of any of the particular constants, right? And that is an assumption which is completely unjustified. For the reason is we only have one universe. We only know one value of these constants.
So no, one value that works. We have one value that works. You gotta say that.
Hang on. We have no way to judge what would happen or what the likelihood of being able to change the values are, right? And you are assuming the probability function for the change in probabilities in order to get this extremely large number of unlikely circumstances which happen. Okay, it may be completely determined, in which case it's just one of one. probability.
No,
It
that is
doesn't
not
even have to
true.
be-
That is not
And
true. You
that-
just assumed something that is not true. You
No.
just honestly, you made a mistake, and I gotta point it out.
Well, you
because
read.
I'm
let me-
sorry.
Well, let me
Okay,
point
go
out really
ahead.
quick.
Go
You're
ahead.
presupposing that you must exist. Like if things are random, there's no reason to believe that the outcome had to lead to you. So if it was all random from the first form to now and perfectly random, you had to throw a trillion sided dice for every event. Okay, then the nature of reality right now would be whatever that random die roll was, and it did happen.
No,
Yes,
that's
it did
exactly
happen.
what
I'm
I'm trying to
here.
point out.
I'm here. Hello, I'm here. If it was completely random, if every event, every cause led to I'm just saying, if every single cause led to a completely random effect, every single one, and say it's 10 to the trillionth power, every single one, let's just presuppose that's the ontology, nature, reality, it's all completely indeterministic. You cannot figure out what the next result is, even though it denies our experience. Let's just presuppose that is the case. And from here forward, it's all normal. Okay. Let's just,
Okay. So
okay,
basically, you are
I
saying
exist. So if we
no.
rolled
But
nuts,
you
we
gotta
rolled
realize
ones.
what you're saying. I'm sorry. You gotta realize what you're saying.
I know
You
what
are
I'm
basically,
saying.
in
I
other
said it.
words, in simpler words, you are saying we just won the cosmic megazillion
No,
because
you're
otherwise nothing would work.
you're presupposing purpose for your own personal existence that you must exist. In that ontology I proposed, there's no necessary reason for you personally to exist. You just happen to exist based upon those random rolls of the die. So if you go back in time, what you're doing, you're saying present is true. I'm going to look at the odds of me existing based upon all the past things from happening rather than looking from
No,
the
that's not what I'm
first
saying. If I
moment.
save you time, no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, then how are you not saying that? How are you
Okay,
not how are you not seeing life formed from non-life without presupposing that life must exist?
Okay. What I'm saying is that the possibilities for everything in this universe to be stacked up the way it is,
The way it is now.
okay, the way it is now.
Is it necessary that things exist the way they are now?
Yes.
Why? That's your presupposition. Why?
I'm gonna tell you why. Because I mean, even astronomers, they say that if the what they call it, the cosmic constant was like 1% different, the universe would not exist as we know
I
it.
don't care. This is not a science argument.
Well, I'm sorry, I cannot like completely just ignore everything else, so I can.
That's a fallacious argument because it assumes prior probabilities of distribution of the constants, and you can't give me a reason as to why there is a uniform distribution. Right? I know that's technical term and it's a statistical thing, but you know, like you were using with the deck, right? This is the example that I generally give here, right? You were saying, look, a deck of cards, okay, and you could, how many times you're saying, well, you've got to have like X number of brilliant like poker hands in a row. Okay, well, if the whole deck is just aces, you're always going to have amazing hands. That's just how that works, right? And I'm just assuming there that the probability, right, distribution of the deck is not 1 in 52, or it's even amongst all 52 cards. I'm assuming that the probability is just aces all the way, right? It's just 1. So I'm just saying, right, this is how it works. You're assuming that there is an even probability distribution of all the constants amongst all of the individual constants amongst their values. That's your presupposition. Okay, now not everybody has that presupposition. So it could be, right, that there can only universes that exist can only have these set distribution patterns.
So you would reiterate that about the cells, the DNA, about everything, like the odds of a DNA, the odds of a chromosome. You're gonna reiterate the same logic that you just said.
Well, once the constants get set, okay, then we're in a more determined. It could be that we're in a deterministic universe, in which case life is inevitable given the number of variations of possibilities of planets that it could evolve life. In which case you could just be here as a necessity. It's possible. I'm not saying that is what I believe. I'm just saying that that is, if we're going to have the idea of possibilities on the table, which is what the whole argument is based on, that it is in fact possible that it could be that way. And for you to say, no, I know that that it's 1 times 10 to the 52 to 1 probability that I could be here, is just you presupposing the probabilities, right? And we can do that, but you're not doing it in somebody else's worldview. You're only doing it in your worldview, and that's what I wish you to understand, right? That you're taking your presuppositions about the statistics and imposing it on other people who may have a completely different idea about how it works. All right, and then you're not showing that their worldview is false.
No.
You're just showing that you
No,
prefer.
let me respond.
you're
I
not
believe
showing-
that you
hang
are
on a minute.
imposing. I'm actually giving you all the
I'm not imposing it on you. No.
one that's imposing
You're
deck
breaking up,
only with
Samir.
only aces on me. So you are imposing. I'm not.
I'm saying it's
Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
possibility.
I said it's your
possibility.
view
I'm
that
not
is
imposing it on you.
okay.
I'm not imposing it on you. I'm saying it's a possibility.
Yeah, you are. When you say a deck full of aces, yes, you are imposing. I'm giving you a deck with
I'm not
all the
imposing,
options that
no.
are possible. So I'm
I'm
treating
not
every
imposing.
possibility.
I'm asking you why. Give me a reason for showing that the constants do have uniform distribution across their values. I'm asking you that question, and I'm giving you a
Okay.
counterexample.
No, they are
to
not
show you-
uniform. They are not uniform. If that's what you're asking, no, they're not uniform.
How do you know that?
Okay, I'll tell you how do I know that. Let's say, for example, we wanted to figure out. Let's say we had just have a deck of 5 cards. Once we
Yeah.
start drawing the cards, in the beginning we have an even chance of pulling any combination in a certain
No,
order.
that's what's under question.
Uh,
You're begging the question if you say that there is an even chance. I'm asking you, why is there an even chance?
Because
do you
there is
know
5
that?
different cards.
Well, how do you know that? If you haven't pulled the cards, we've only got one
No,
universe.
because they are
We have
probabilities.
literally, the example is we have a deck of cards. There's only one universe. That's the deck of cards, and you get one chance to pull a card.
No, the universe is not the deck of cards. The possibilities of things being a certain way in the universe are the deck of cards.
Then you do not understand the objection that I'm making.
No, I understand the objection that you're making, and that you just want me to just look at the way the cards are dealt in the universe and then say, okay, this is the way they are, and this is the way they ought to be.
No, I'm saying that you have to presuppose. You are presupposing the probability distribution by saying all the cards are different, and I'm asking you why. What is the reason that you can assume that in the case of the constants?
Okay, I'm not the only one assuming that. That's what led to the hypothesis that there is a multiverse.
No,
So
you are assuming it. If this is your position, that you were saying
No,
that's
I'm not
why
the only
Ozian's
one that's
position
assuming
is
that.
false. You may
I
not
said-
be the only one that's assuming it. That's not what's in debate here. What's in debate here is why do you think that this particular set of cards has a uniform distribution?
Because it works.
It doesn't. That's not an answer.
No, because every other combination would not work. If
No, that's
you
not
did
true.
okay, let's say
That's
okay,
not true.
I'll give you an example.
No,
I'll
I gave
give you an example
of a
too.
set of cards.
I'll
which
give you an
would
example
work,
too. I'll give you an
which had a
example too.
different- I gave you an example of a set of cards which would work, which had a different probability distribution.
No, you didn't give me a
So
set of
what you
cards. You
just
just
did
gave me
is
no
fact.
basic. No. If I
52
say that
cards.
to my math teacher, he's gonna kick me out of the class. If I tell him, well,
he won't.
I'm gonna tell him, well, we're gonna calculate the probabilities of this, and the probabilities are only one probability. Accept that.
He's asking you how you know it's a deck of cards and what's in the deck when it comes.
No,
to
the deck of cards was just use an example. The deck of cards was
I know.
just to somehow
Dr. J-
materialize the possibilities.
Go
But
ahead.
there is a
Dr. J wanted to
presupposition.
jump into.
Let me just finish this then. There is a presupposition by using a deck of cards which has 52 different values on them. And that's what I'm getting at. Your presupposition that your deck of cards is in fact a random deck of cards that has 52 values. How do you know that? You've given me no reason to believe that that is necessarily the case. I'll go. I'll finish there. Thank you.
Yeah, no. Well, I'm going to tell you why it's necessary. Because this is supposedly random. If it's random, that means it could be in any way. That
Is it
means every
possible?
possibility is valid.
Is it
Yeah,
That's right.
possible
any
to
way.
randomly shuffle a deck of cards?
Could be any way. It could be all aces, or it could be no
No,
aces.
no, not all. No, that is not true. That is wrong. I'm
That's
sorry.
what random means.
No,
That is what
the
random
possibilities. The possibilities could not be all the same. When we're talking about probabilities, I can't say you might arrive at 3 o'clock, or you might arrive at 3 o'clock, or you might arrive at 3 o'clock, or you might arrive at 3 o'clock. That's not logical.
Look, I'm afraid it is logical, right? In terms of what we are talking about, which is a distribution of probability of value, right? If you were to go to your maths teacher and say exactly what I've said, okay, he'd go, well, that is true. That is how probabilities work, right? There is a distribution of probability over a deck of cards, which is 1 in 52. That's how that works, right?
Okay,
It's an even because every card has a different value. It's an even distribution.
Is there a possibility for a universe that is exactly the same way this one is, except humans don't have white blood cells?
That's what possibility means.
Okay, humans don't have white blood cells.
That's what
We all die.
possibility means. This could be exactly the same way.
Humans wouldn't exist if humans would die with white blood cells. we would
Exactly. So
never-
it's a different possibility. It's not a deck of aces.
You're
But
saying
it's not
humans
just
are
humans.
necessary. You're saying humans are necessary. Dr. J
No.
wants
Yes,
Humans,
Go ahead,
humans
Doc.
just as a
Okay,
variant.
Doc.
I've definitely said
Okay.
Humans just as a variant. Humans just
Okay,
as a
let-
variant, not necessary. Just as a variant.
Okay, Simonson, let me try. Okay, so Samir, I think this is the argument you're using, which I've used before. So tell me if I'm describing it correctly. I have a bunch of dice, 100 dice, whatever it is. I roll the dice, and they end up in a certain arrangement of numbers on the floor. It's like, what are the chances that arrangement would happen? It's like 1 in a lot, right? 1 in a billion or whatever the number is. It's just incredibly unlikely, right? I mean, to get all those numbers in that arrangement in that order would just be incredibly unlikely. And so therefore you say, well, look, I look at the world and things had to be arranged in a certain way in order for all of us to live and be this way. That's incredibly unlikely, right? And so it's because it's incredibly unlikely, things must be designed. Does that sound correct? Like the argument, like, look, how unlikely it would be that it all ends up being this way.
Yes,
therefore it must be
except there
designed.
is two. Yeah, there is two parts to what you said. The first, when you roll the dice, and the second is that the number of the dice, the numbers that the dice came up, was, for example, a 600-digit code to unlocking the possibility of this world being this way.
Yeah. So what happens? What if you think about it this way? Like if you just rolled, if a whole bunch of dice got rolled, it has to end up being some way. It has to be
Yes.
It has to be something, right?
Yes.
And so what
agree.
Ozian, I think, is saying is it just has to be something, and that something that it happened to be is the way it is now. And so instead of saying it's almost impossible, it's saying no, there's 100% chance it'll be that one way. And what is that one way? Well, it's how it is now. That's what Ozian is saying. Does that make
Okay,
sense? I'm not saying you need to agree. I'm just saying, does it?
No. Can
Does it make
I
sense?
just stop you right there? I just want to understand something from you. You're saying so there is 100% chance it is that way after it happens. So we're
It's going to have to be one way
after
and
it happened. After it happened or before it happened?
So once there had to be one way, and we're experiencing that one way right now. So in a sense, there was, there's 100%. I know it's not quite that. No one predicted. No one was around to predict it or whatever. But yeah, in a sense, it was 100%. Does that make sense? You see how if I went and saw 100 dice or whatever laying on the ground, and I'd say something like, "Oh, look, the chances of the dice being in this particular order is incredibly rare. You could roll these dice millions of more times. You would never get this order ever again."
Honestly, that is without a meaning. If they're in any order they are, It would only be amazing if after you roll the die and you write down each number of each die, and they end up to be the single 600-digit combination to unlock this padlock.
Yeah, but what Ozian's saying is humanity isn't amazing. It's just what accidentally happened. You don't need an amazing padlock lock. There is no there's nothing to unlock. Humanity just happens to be the next evolution from apes, from whatever, my evolution's not great here, but
Yeah, I'm not just talking about humanity. I'm talking about the whole universe. The whole universe to work as a
that's how the
universe,
universe is.
including
There's
humanity, including planets, including stars,
Exactly.
including atoms, including everything.
The universe is no more special than a random roll of the dice.
So you mean every other roll of the die will make it another universe?
Well, if it were possible to roll the die over and over again, yes, I guess that would be true. But yes,
No, that is not true.
There was
That is not true. That is not true because you're gonna need a roll of a die that decides that negative repels negative, and that
another roll of the
antimatter
die might
annihilates
make
matter,
Who
and
knows
that
what? It'd be impossible
every
to
single
know
thing
what
has
do.
to line up to make a universe.
But who knows?
There
Maybe
doesn't
another
have
roll
to
of
be
die
a
would.
universe.
Let me, Ozian, let's not. Let
Okay.
me go here. Whatever the other roll of the die means, we have no idea what it would be. A universe or not a universe, it could be anything. We have absolutely no idea. But it had to be one way, and the one way that it is how it is now. That's all he's saying. I mean, maybe you disagree. That's. But I just wanted to make sure you kind of try to.
No, I
understand
don't
what he's saying.
disagree. I'm just saying the way it is now is very special because it works.
And he doesn't think it's special. Does that make sense? It's nothing special. It could have rolled a different way.
No, I mean, listen. I respect his opinion. Honestly, I respect his opinion. I just disagree.
Yeah, that's that's totally cool. I just wanted to try to make sure I explain it because I
I
felt like you
appreciate
guys
that.
you're
I appreciate
sort of
that. And
talking past
honestly,
each other.
yeah, and honestly, I love this panel so much that I really didn't even want to engage in this because I just wanted to talk about the debate. But
Well, we finished that. We should have probably started a new stream and retitled it actually, but Justin
It
told me
was
that.
really fun, so don't feel bad, Samir. We love you here, having you
no,
here.
well, if you care to hear about another Muslim view or the main Muslim view, is that everything that Isa said tonight was not true. And honestly, I respect the guy. I supported him with super chat in every debate that he had, and but everything that he said was not true and could be easily debunked. And the fact that he used the anti-Sunnah tactic kind of disarmed. What was his name? I'm sorry, I apologize.
Mohammed?
No, his opponents.
Ben.
Ben, yes. So the way Muhammad used the anti-Sunnah tactic kind of disarmed Ben, and his way could easily be disarmed. And the reason why, because what he said about the hadith could be true about the unauthentic hadith, not about the authentic hadith. And the reason why, because the Quran that he's appealing to is guiding you to the Sunnah. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ, and whatever the Prophet gives you, take it. And God also says, whatever you disagree upon, bring it back to Allah, and bring it back to the Prophet, and bring it back to those who are in charge of you. So this is what the Quran says. So how can I bring back something to the Prophet if you're going to say, well, maybe this was during the life of the Prophet, when you can go back to the Prophet? No, because God also says, bring it back to God. So you bring it back to God through the book of God, you bring it back to the Prophet through the hadith of the Prophet. So, and then if you ask about the Sunnah too, is like, okay, he says, the Quran says, God says that we have not ignored any matter in this book. Yeah, that is true. But for example, the Quran talks about Salat. But how do we know how many rak'ah we're going to make in the Salat? We got to go back to the hadith. Quran talks about making wudu, washing yourself for the prayer. Quran does talk about that. God did not ignore that. But how do we know how we're going to wash ourselves for the? We go back to the Prophet. The Quran talks about making zakat. So how do we find out? It's 2.5% of the unspent money. Then we go back to the hadith of the Prophet. The Quran says make hajj. How do we know what doing hajj? No. Then we go back to the hadith and we find out how to make hajj. So the authentic hadith is a very much needed baggage to use as a Muslim. So, but I feel like by using the strategy, he totally disarmed Ben, and Ben just, I feel like after that point he became harmless, and he could not dig into his debate strategy. But I'm not attacking Muhammad, by the way. I'm just defending the view of 99% of the Muslims.
99. I don't think it's quite 99, right? It's,
The Shia to Ali will first disagree on the hadith, and you made a claim about wudu. You can take the Quran. You don't need the hadith, because the Shia have a wudu where they wipe their hands and their arms, and that's in Surah Al-Ma'idah, so they don't have to have hadith. And also the point is, if there are challenges to the hadith, you have Joshua Little's thesis against hadith, and there's problems because the point is, if we're going to engage hadith, you could say the metric scale of looking at a hadith, what's called sahih versus da'if. Sahih is strong hadith, da'if is weak hadith. What is the metric? The metric is how many are good people giving narration to it. It does not give us a look at the validity of the information.
No, I'm
We
sorry.
have
It's
no
not
idea
just that.
about
It's matn, Isa. It's matn and sanad. Matn
Okay.
plus sanad.
So, but how can we look at the matn? I know that we could say, here's the sanad, we have the chain.
No,
But how can you
يعرضه
prove
على
the
القرآن.
veracity- how can you prove the veracity of information within the hadith? This is a challenge. How do we know? We know about the isnad. We could say, okay, you got good people who are sharing this information, but how do you prove the validity of the information with this hadith? How do you prove that? You say the people are
Okay.
good people, they're noble people, they're honorable
Okay.
people.
Isa, you
Fine.
speak Arabic?
شوية.
Okay.
Okay.
إن جاءكم عني حديث فاعرضوه على كتاب الله فما وافق كتاب الله فخذوا به وإن لم يوافق كتاب الله فاضربوا به عرض الحائط.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm hoping that was clear. If the Prophet said, if you get a hadith from me, then compare it to the Book of Allah. If it agrees with what's in the Book of Allah, then accept it. If it disagrees with what's in the Book of Allah, then throw it against the wall.
Okay. But I mean, I don't think I'm talking about the science in and of itself. I'm saying if we're looking at the science, we kind of are presupposing a lot of things. This is why people who are Quranists, people who take the Mutazilite, flag or banner, and the reasons why there are challenges. The thing is, the Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah narrative has pushed itself to where it is, but there are challenges to it. Just because, and I think it's fair that people have challenges to it, this is something that needs to be considered. So I am curious. It's like, okay, you could say, well, this is my opinion. I think it agrees. I say that this is it. But
No, you know that we don't go by our opinions. And also, I just wanted for Ocean to don't think that I over exaggerated when I said 99%. The reason I said 99% is because the Shia, the Asha'ira, the Sufiya, the Sunnah, they all have hadith. The only ones that don't agree with hadith are the Quranics or the Quranis.
The issue is, what is the hadith? Which hadith are correct? Najl al-Balagha, if you're looking at and you're looking at the collections of the Shia, they don't necessarily connect with Sahih Bukhari, Sahih Muslim. They're not necessarily, these corpuses don't necessarily connect with each other. So there are challenges. So I mean, yes, you could say there are tradition, but we don't. Which tradition is correct? That this is the difficult element.
They don't eat. I'm gonna tell you why. Because when it comes to the Shia, For example, you talked about Nahj al-Balagha or Tafsir al-Qummi or al-Kafi or
Okay.
these books. When we look at their matan and we try to compare it with the Quran, it just doesn't match. As furthermore, they have I can share the article from their what do you call it authority that says that discourage him to do what the Imam says. The Imam says the same thing that the Prophet says, to take the Hadith and compare it with the Quran. Now their maraji' are saying not to compare the Hadith to the Quran, and they also have what they call فصل الخطاب في فصل الخطاب في تحريف كتاب رب الأرباب. They're trying to say that there is a proof that the Quran is falsified, so we cannot make Hadith compared with the Quran, and that Mahdi will come at the end of the time and will come up with the correct version of the Quran. So I don't want to confuse everyone here with this conversation. This is why I don't go back to what the Shia has in the Hadith. This is what I look back to the earlier Hadith, and this is why all scholars consider Imam Bukhari and Imam Muslim's Hadith to be the most authentic, because they had very strict rules on how they collected those Hadiths.
I mean, I think that's good Sunni apologetics. I mean, that's I've heard that my entire life. That's good Ahlus Sunnah Jama'ah apologetics. That's a good defense for Ahlus Sunnah Jama'ah. But I definitely don't think everyone is just in agreement with this. It's not some hunky-dory situation. And yes, there are scholars, because it's an easy thing to do. To say, here's Sahih Bukhari. Again, the point has really been challenged on. You said, okay, so the matan is the text, the isnad is the chain. The issue is, okay, we have these chains. You could say there are multiple chains that link this hadith. Again, how do we test the veracity of the information? You made the argument that you said, well, the Quran, if it connects to the Quran, then it must be true. Okay, but there's a lot of ahadith that people just trust.
No, there is a third route. There is a third route, and I know that you know it, which is called tawatur.
Yeah, that's multiple chains. That's
Okay.
the multiple chains that you said. There's
Yes.
that's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Okay, so let me ask you. Let's do proof by contradiction. The Quran talks at several times about the prayer. Aqimus salat, aqimus salat. How did you learn where to perform your prayer from without hadith? Or make wudu, wash up for the prayer?
Remember, I engaged the wudu. You can get that from the Quran. So the Shia do that. So I mean,
No, they got it wrong. They got it wrong.
well,
Because
that's,
of one fatha, they decided to wipe their feet instead of washing their feet. Because of one fatha. A fatha in English would be a vowel. So they wipe their feet and they go, and now you can even lay your head on inside their mosques. You can't lay your head on the carpets inside their mosques because the carpet stinks from dirty feet because they're not washing their feet.
So
Maybe
in the
close to
Quran,
the-
it says specifically that you must wash your feet, does it?
it
Okay.
says you can wipe your feet. That's the argument. But he's challenging that, saying that's why you.
No,
need
no,
that
no,
hadith.
no.
I'm
It doesn't
asking
say.
a specific question. You said you were doing proof by contradiction. So
Yeah.
the Quran contradicts that you must do more than just wipe your feet,
Yes.
right? And what does it actually say then, in your estimation,
Okay.
about your feet?
Well,
Just about your feet. I'm not interested in anything else.
no. The way the sentence is formulated,
Mm.
it's a bunch of pronouns that are separating orders and how to make the wudu. And one of them, wamsahu, wipe your heads,
Yeah.
and then arju likum. So if the pronoun and was to give your feet the same rule as your head, it would be arjulakum.
Okay.
And since it's arjulikum, that means the pronoun and is connecting it to the part prior to that where the vowel E was used rather than the vowel A. And this
Okay.
is a rule in the Arabic language, and even the Shias know that.
Sorry, you're still not telling me where it says that you must wash your feet
In the Quran.
in the Quran. Yeah, where does it say
Yes.
you must wash your feet? You're saying the bit that's before that is wash. Is that right?
Yes. Yes.
And what's it referring to? Wash your hands?
Yeah. Yeah. You said don't tell me the other stuff. That's why I didn't tell you the other
No,
stuff.
no. I'm just asking for the contradiction about the feet. So you're saying
Yeah.
it says wash your hands and wipe your head,
Yeah.
and
Wash your. It
also
says
do
wash
the
your
same
hands.
as with the hands to your feet.
Yeah. It says
Okay.
wash your hands. Wash your hands with the vowel E. Wash your faces with the vowel E, and wipe your heads with the vowel A, and
Yes.
then your feet with the vowel E. And in the Arabic language, usually that would means that your feet was. Isa, can you help me? What is at? I mean, addition, whatever
We'll
it
go
was.
to Isa in a
said-
second. I'm understanding what you say.
Well,
And,
arjulakum,
look, I'm not
okay.
an Arabic scholar, so I've got no reason not to accept that as a valid interpretation. Okay, so this bit about the vowel, Isa, you're the expert that I'm going to have to come to. Does using that vowel E mean wash?
So my understanding of what was being engaged with is the concept of the word wa arjulakum. So does this mean are you washing your feet versus rubbing your feet? This is what the contention is.
Yeah.
And I think that is the contention for the Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, the way that they understand the concept of this term. That's what Samir is saying. He's saying it's understood based on the vowel, because Arabic didn't necessarily have like the diacritical marks. We've used these marks to help
Sure.
us know how to read it. The
Classical
fatha, the
Arabic
kasra, and the
doesn't,
dhamma.
yeah.
These and the sukun, like these help us know how to pronounce the words. So they can change. The whole word can
Hey,
change.
that's interesting, right?
When
So
you
my
put
understanding,
the
if
fatha
I could
versus
just ask
kasra.
you a question and interrupt you there. So my understanding was that there aren't any markings on the letters in the Quran. It's a perfect document, right? Is that true or not true? It's written in Arabic without any flourishes whatsoever, as we would call them, or accents, as we would call them in different languages.
Okay, the Quran was for the Quran. It's called hifd with the. That means the people were memorizing the Quran. So it was a tradition of tawatur. That's what Isa and I talked about before.
Sure.
So, for example, there is an accusation for the Shia that says that some of the Quran lost because a goat ate few pages of the pages of Quran that Aisha was keeping, and we laugh at that. We say, well, it doesn't mean if a Bible gets burned, it doesn't mean that all Bibles are burned. It's those were few pages of one Quran. So it's the same thing. When it comes to hifd, everybody it was no harakat in the writing, the way they wrote Quran back then, or even periods.
Yeah, that's what I was
but,
asking. So
yeah,
harakat
but
is accent in English. We have accents over, like French has accents over the letters sometimes.
but it was harakat in the way people memorized and read the Quran for each prayer.
But no. So could you just answer the question as directly as possible, because I'm not a scholar. So
No,
am
I'm
I
just
correct in
honestly only
assuming-
trying to make it understood for you. That's all.
No, yeah. But so as a comparable, I'm making an analogy here, right? Like in French, there are many accents on particular letters which change the meanings of the letter itself and how it's used in words. And there aren't any of those in the original Quran.
Accent aigu, accent grave.
Yes, exactly. And there are none of those in the original Quran, whereas, of course, as we know, Arabic itself is replete with different variations of them, in fact. And then it means there are millions of words possible in the Quran, right? Possible in Arabic.
Yes.
Right. So am I correct in assuming there are none in
No,
the Quran, or
yes.
am I incorrect?
No, you are correct.
I am correct. Does this thing about the E and changing, could you tell me the phrase again? Something?
Yeah.
Arjulukum.
وامسحوا
Ajulakum,
برؤوس
thank
وأرجلكم.
And does that depend on having one of these
وأرجلكم
accents in the hadith?
برؤوسكم وأرجلكم. Go ahead.
Does
Yeah.
does that depend in the hadith upon having one of these accents?
No.
No. Okay, so it seems fairly clear then that this argument is sound. Isa, would you agree?
I don't see the. Okay, go ahead. Maybe I missed something.
Well, there isn't two different variations of Arabic that you're talking. We are talking classical Arabic.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
talking classical
from
Arabic.
both.
Yes.
Right. So either the word with that letter means to wash, or it doesn't mean to wash.
Yes.
So the Shia interpret it mean to wipe your feet, and
Okay.
the argument that for Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah or the Sunni community is it's like a full washing. So this is the difference. And what he was saying, what Samir is arguing, is that in like a Shia masjid, because they're not washing their feet, the masjid doesn't,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
does not smell good. So
So it comes down to
You know, we
interpretation
put our
of what the word
foreheads on the
means. So
carpet.
that's what I'm pointing. It comes
I
down
get
to
it.
what it
yo,
means.
but
right?
Salafis wear their shoes everywhere, bro. Like I don't know
Well,
if you know that, but the
this
Salafis
is-
they'll pray with their shoes on everywhere, man.
This
No,
is
no,
an
no, no,
argument
no.
for
That's not
why.
shoes, Isa. You
wait,
know it's not shoes.
So this is an
the
argument
Salafis
for
do.
why you need the hadith to interpret it between wipe or wash.
No, that's not. There are some things even in the verse of the Quran. It does not talk about the madmada. It does not talk about how many times you wash your face and how many times, for example, you wipe your ears once, but you wash your face 3 times. You do madmada, which is rinse your mouth 3 times. You do wash your nose 3 times. You wash
These
your
are-
hands and twice,
Well, these
once
are other.
to
These
the
are
wrist
other
and once to the
rituals,
elbows.
but these are other rituals outside of the Quran.
Yes.
Okay, so I
Um,
just specifically want to know: can you know whether you should wipe or wash strictly from the Quran, or do you need hadiths to know if you should at minimum wipe or wash?
No, the Quran is enough to understand if you need to wash or wipe.
So why do people disagree then?
No, Isa didn't even disagree. Isa just brought up that the Shias do wipe their feet instead of washing.
That sounds like a disagreement. So why do they disagree that you don't have to wash?
Okay. Because I was really afraid that it's going to take us to that rabbit hole, because then now we're going to start to compare the Shias with the Sunnah. Why? What is the difference between the Shia and the Sunnah? The Shias, they have this principle that says Khaliful Amma. Khaliful Amma, that means be different than they call us the general, like call us general pop or whatever you would call it, generals, the general pop. So they want to do everything differently than we do
They want
it.
to be edgy. They want to be edge lords. Like we would call them edge lords in the U.S. That's
Okay.
fine.
Okay,
But,
so this is one of their principles. So because we do a lot of things in the religion, I don't want to go to every detail, because we do a lot of things in the religion they would do differently. For example, we would break our fast when the sun sets, and they would say no, they're gonna wait like 30 minutes after that to break their fast. We will stop eating in the morning. They will eat after that. We make 5 prayers a day. We make 5 prayers a day. They make 3 prayers a day. So this is not the only topic where they do khilaf al-amma.
Yeah, and the Quran is 5 prayers a day. That's Quranic, right?
Yes, but what they do is they take 2 sets of 2 prayers and they combine them.
Oh, okay. And whatever.
No, they do the 5 times prayer, but they just do it in a combined set. Like they do Dhuhr and Asr prayer, and they do Maghrib and Isha, and they combine those prayers together.
So the wipe versus wash, where do they get the wipe? Just to be contrarians, or because they interpret the Arabic differently?
Yeah, because in Arabic, when you say "and," that's a pronoun, right?
And no,
And and that's a pronoun.
no.
I think
But-
it's a conjunction.
Conjunctions. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So-
I'm not sure whether
I'm
that's.
looking.
That's the thing. That's how it's used in logic. anyway.
Conjunction.
It's a
yes.
conjunction. What's
Okay.
your phone?
Okay, so the conjunction "and" in Arabic is used differently than in English. So, for example, it says, for example, I'll give you other verses in the Quran where this would
I'm just asking about this washing because the
okay,
wiping versus
because the first verb is referring to washing the hands and the faces,
Okay.
and then and there is a conjunction between each step, and then there is a step that says and wipe your heads just with wet hands. You just pass your hand over your head and wipe your head, and then it says and your feet, but the haraka that is after feet is the same haraka that was used for washing the hands and the faces. But the Shia are using the order instead of the haraka, which is not part of the Arabic rule. Any Arabic speaker would know that the addition of actions would have to respect the haraka and not the order.
Okay, so that's so they are interpreting the Arabic differently than what's traditional.
Yes, and
Okay, so-
they know that. Like I just had a little debate with the Shia in Arabic language, and he clearly admitted that.
Okay,
And then
but
he
that-
tried to use the hadith from the Shia books about Ali wiping his feet, and then I proved to him from his hadith that he was wrong because in his hadith Ali says, Ali, which they glorify,
Okay.
which is the cousin of the Prophet, Ali said that he also wiped his face. So I said, well, this hadith you gave me, Ali basically just wiped his face. So I said he was using the word wipe as wash. So if you wanna apply that to the feet, then now you're gonna have to apply it to the face as well.
Sure. I don't think this part of the discussion matters so much as I want to bring it back to where the conflict started. I believe where you were saying, I believe originally that Quranic can't be correct because you need hadiths. So, but then you brought up this example, but it seems like the hand washing, foot washing comes from the proper interpretation of the hadith or of the Quran itself, proper linguistics, whatever you want to say, of the Quran. Why do you need the hadiths then? It doesn't seem like your argument. Seems like your arguments led us to believe you don't need the hadiths to know that you need to wipe your head, wash your hands, and wash your feet.
Okay. No, that's exactly. I answered it, but you didn't hear it. Because when we do wudu, you wash your hands 3 times. You
That
wash.
comes from the hadiths.
Yes.
Is
So
it important if somebody only follows what it says in the Quran? Would that be wrong, or would it just cause
His wudu would not be correct. You can't just come in and wash your face and hands and go pray, or
Why?
and wash your feet and go pray.
Why?
Because Allah says, وَمَا أَتَاكُمُ الرَّسُولُ فَخُذُوهُ.
Somebody could translate. I don't.
Okay, because God said, and what the Prophet gives you, then take it. And Allah also says, obey Allah and obey his Prophet and obey those who are in charge of you, which would answer a different question that you talked about earlier, but I'm going to refrain.
I think I asked Muhammad about this when he was on. It's like I thought there was something in there that indicated you're supposed to follow like the teachings of Muhammad. The only way you can know, not the teachings, but live your life as like Muhammad. And he says, no, you should live your life more so as Abraham. But I'm like, how do you know anything about Abraham versus Muhammad? You have all the hadiths. So
Okay.
And he said, well, that was his counter. So I don't know how to tell why, based on what I've heard, it's necessary to wash your hands 3 times.
Okay, so I'll give you an example, Ozian. So let's say the U.S. Constitution said you must pay taxes, but your state, let's say, for example, you're in Colorado, and Colorado says for your tax bracket is 28%.
Okay.
Do you not need your local constitution or your local law to understand how much you need to pay? Would you say I just need the constitution?
Sure.
Okay, so this is what I'm saying with the hadith. It's the same
But then-
thing with the prayer. It's the same thing with zakat. For
begging
example,
the
taxes.
question.
Taxes in Islam, I gotta pay 2.5%. Where do
You're
I get
beg-
that number from the Quran?
You're
The
begging
Quran tells me to
question,
pay
though.
my zakat.
I still want to know why we need states. Why do we need state taxes? Why is it necessary to have laws that the states taxes separately?
No,
from
no,
the
you
federal
just need some
government?
source that tells you how much is the tax. Let's not call it a law. Let's just say a booklet, some other booklet outside.
I
of the co-
understand. Okay, so you're saying we must pay taxes. Okay.
Yeah,
so
if the Constitution only says you must pay taxes, it's a citizen, you must pay taxes.
okay.
Now you're gonna need another document to let you know how much you need to pay, right?
Sure.
Okay, so that's the same thing.
But
The Quran tells me I need to go to Hajj. The Quran tells me I need to pay zakat. Zakat is my tax as a Muslim. So
but it
I
sounds
need.
like it does tell you a minimum number. Like if you just say you must pay tax, it's not giving you a quantity, so it has to be at least a something negligible value that you have to pay based upon the mandate. So I would take, like, if God was saying you must pay taxes, like he's just saying like something tangible I must pay if he doesn't give me a percentage, or he must tell me I must follow the laws of the land, but then then it's just follow the laws of the land that I live in, but that doesn't tell me which hadith I must follow. And it seems like he's giving you a quantity of at least one. He's telling you must wash your hands in the Quran at least once, and you must wash your feet at least once, and you must wipe your head at least once. So you get a quantity. So it seems to be that it's disanalogous. There's a problem with your analogy between tax, you must pay taxes and how much, versus you must wipe yourself, and he gives you a quantity of one. Or do the nouns not
No.
have a
No,
quantity?
there's no quantity. There's no quantities.
So if somebody says wash hands, that doesn't entail once at least. Like, so the words, I'm just curious that the words, do they need a quantity assigned to it? Like in English, it would say he has a hat, and we mean that as quantity of one. So if we
Okay,
say you must wash hands, in English we mean once.
Okay. Well, I'll give you an example. The reason why the number 3 is important is just amplifying or emphasizing the fact that the hand will be very clean. Just like another example, like for us, when we use the bathroom, if I want to wipe myself, I'm supposed to do it with my left hand. And the reason for that is in case I don't wash my hands or I don't wash my hands well, I meet you outside and I shake your hand, I'm not exposing you to any uncleanliness.
But you're still begging the question, I think. Like that's based upon what the hadiths tell you, not
Yes.
the Quran tells you. So
The Quran is telling me to listen to the Prophet's sayings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So could I just try maybe just bring this in, which I think earlier Samir said, if it doesn't contradict the Quran, then that gives legitimacy to the hadith. Am I correct with that, Samir?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so then that begs the question, as Ozian is saying, if 3 times is clean, 4 times is cleaner. If there's a hadith, one hadith says 4 times and one says 3, how do you know which is the correct hadith? You've got to go
Okay,
through different criteria. You mentioned other criteria, of course, but those criteria weren't defined in terms of any logic rigidity. They were just defined in subjective estimation of heritage, for instance.
I think it's cultural. It seems cultural to me. But Max wants to say something. I'm
I
not saying
do-
it's wrong either. You should clean your feet if you're going to go barefoot in a place where people are putting their heads on the floor. Like
That's
No, but
true.
I'm sorry,
Yes.
Max. I'm sorry, Max. Max is so kind. I hate interrupting you, Max. I just need to say this because I feel like
Go
okay.
ahead.
I just want you to know that the examples that I gave you of the prayer and the Hajj and the zakat and wudu, those were just subjective examples that I just pulled out of my hat to give you. Okay, so
Yeah.
just like you disagreed with me about those examples, which I still believe that I'm correct, by the way, 100%. But a Muslim could disagree with me about choosing those examples because those were my choice as examples to use. So there is nothing wrong with you disagreeing with me there. But
I'm not
the
disagreeing with
fact,
you. I'm not be clear. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying.
no, I mean you're
I don't
challenging
see
me.
the connection. Yeah.
Yeah, you're challenging me on them. Okay, so I said when, for example, the prayer, in my opinion, is an easier and a better example. So you can't just say God told you to pray once. Okay, so I go wash myself and now I'm ready to pray. What do I say? In each rak'ah, I'm supposed to do certain things. I'm supposed to say Allahu Akbar, Takbirat al-Ihram. I'm supposed to read Al-Fatiha. I'm supposed to read another small surah. There are some prayers where I'm supposed to make prayer out loud, and the prayers of the dark where my voice is heard, and other prayers where I'm supposed to keep my voice unheard. And then after I complete all the tasks and all the sayings of the prayer, this is called one rak'ah. And now am I going to repeat that rak'ah 2 times, 3 times, or 4 times, depends on the prayer. And what time I make those prayers, and do I have any excuses for delaying the prayers? So all these things weren't mentioned for me in the Quran. So God said, make the prayer, make the prayer, make the prayer. Those who make the prayer, goodness to those who make the prayers. Now I want to make that prayer. I need to know how to make that prayer. And I'll tell you that Muhammad needs the hadith to make the prayer. There's no other way of making the prayer. And you can challenge me on that.
He disagrees with you, but I don't know how to tell you.
No, he would. No,
But me,
I challenge him to disagree on that. I challenge him to disagree on that because he can't bring that out from the Quran.
That would be an
That's what I'm saying.
that would be an interesting conversation, and I think Isa addressed some of the interpretation problems.
Like Isa, to keep me honest, Isa, correct me if
that may arise.
Isa, is there a way to assume the way for prayer just from Quran? How to make the prayer, everything you say, and then the rak'ahs and everything about the prayer.
Okay, you should have explained what these things are, because I don't think the audience knows what this stuff is. So I'll try.
No, I just want to say that they are different things. I'm only saying them because there is somebody that can keep me honest here.
Okay. This is a difficulty for a Quranist only Muslim. The wudu, I don't think. I think you can make that's why I made a contention towards that, because I think you can contend that, and the Shia do contend that, and that's why I brought that up as a counter argument. The Salat is a little bit more complex. It's difficult because the Quran does not really go deep into what you exactly do. And so in Salat or Salah, there's these things, what Samir is calling is a raka'ah. A raka'ah is it's like a cycle that you go through in the prayer. So there's a thing where you're standing up, and then you say certain prayers while you're standing up. Then you kind of bow down, where you put your hands on your knees. So I'm trying to explain this because it's for a lot of people, they don't really know what this is. So it's
fine. You can just take it as ritual. Okay, we understand.
Yeah. So
what a ritual
throughout the
is,
ritual, you do certain, you say certain prayers, you say certain supplications, and Samir is right. It is difficult to make that argument because it's not. That's usually the challenge that because the Shia do have their own collections of hadith, and this is a challenge that's difficult to go through. I don't think the alms is a great argument, but I can see the Salah argument being one that you could use, and it is an important thing for Muslims to do, and it's difficult not to use the hadith. But the issue still stands is, because some hadith may have validity, does that mean now we trust all of these hadith? That's another question that is brought up. I don't think just because you say, hey, there's one good thing here, I'm going to say all of it is now defaultly good just because there is a good, as he said, tawatur, there's multiple chains that said this is true, thus it is true. I don't know if that is the best argument. And I keep hearing that argument. A bunch of good people said this thing, thus it is true. Again, my position, my question that has not been answered is, how do we know about the validity of the information? We don't know. We don't know if the information's 100% true, but Samir has a good argument. On the point of Salat, you could say, yes, this is something that is very helpful. But like, let's say other things that might exist, like Aisha's age of being 6 years old, we don't know.
I'll talk about that. Let's not want to go on that. Pick another example. Any
Okay,
other
I'm just saying,
example
sorry.
that won't get
Sorry. Oh, yeah,
the
well, that's
YouTube banned, and
Sure, yeah, but I would say that that's something that is in controversy. That's a question, but we don't have to talk about that point. But there's other things, like there's a hadith about drinking camel urine. Is that permissible? There's a lot. There's a whole, because there's so many thousands and thousands of hadith. This is a difficult situation, and there are things. This is why people turn to Quran only Islam, because when they start reading it, they're like, "What the heck is this stuff?" Sahih Bukhari is complex, and the Shia insulted it and make fun of it all day because there are narrations where people are like, "Whoa, what is this stuff?" So again, I understand what Samir is saying. He's saying, yes, there's this meticulous method of collecting the hadith, and that method is, hey, there are a lot of really good people who have good character, and that showcases, and they have good character, thus this information must be true. That is presupposed, and that's what I understand from looking into the sciences, spending a lot of years looking into hadith sciences. That's all I've seen.
There is a very close analogy here, I think, with Catholicism, and that is the writing of the early church fathers is accepted by the Catholics to be true, and also almost the word of God, not quite, but true as in it's been verified by the popes as the word of God. So they accept that because it's church tradition and it came from early church fathers and for no other reason. So I think this is very similar, and obviously that was done in the 2nd and 3rd century, or 3rd and 4th century, I should say, really. So yeah, just to point that out, that this is not uncommon in most religions. I think that there is additional books that go along with the main book, as it were, or the canonization of the main book. Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
I have 2 questions. I think they're quick for Samir. The first one, which is the one that breaks my head the most, is what difference does it make? I understand the whole thing about the mat, like keeping the mat. I don't know if that's the best way to refer to that item. I'm sorry if I don't know the exact name. You know, the little rug where you pray on. I understand keeping that clean. But why would God care if you washed yourself before praying? Wouldn't the action of praying count more, or be the important thing and not your physical status at the moment?
I think they would say if you can't watch, like if there's something preventing you from washing your feet, but you can pray, you're fine, right? No?
No, I think it's more to do with cultural appropriation from people or Arab tribes and their personal attitudes to hygiene, which predate the Quran in that period.
It's also the fact that you are making prayer in Jama'ah. In Jama'ah means a group. So it would not be fair for you to come to the prayer and I come with janaba, which Isa knows what it is if you don't wash after a sexual encounter or something, which would need the big ghusl, because there's ghusl akbar, ghusl asghar is wudu. Basically, you need to shower in American terms. So it would not be fair for you when you're trying to be spiritual and pray for me to stink like a pig next to you, or to the other person on the other side of me, or my feet stink and smell bad. That would not be fair for you. And then if my feet stink, since we pray on a big giant rug, if my feet stink, imagine that the next person behind me, when we bow to God down on the ground and we put our foreheads and noses on the ground, I put my forehead and nose where somebody's feet were that were clean, and the guy behind me has to sit there and sniff my feet for the length of the prayer. So this is why you're supposed to do that. It's a lot of things in Islam where you get rewarded not because you're doing things for God, but because you're doing things for other people or other things. Just like I told you the story of the Prophet telling the people that that Jewish lady who wasn't even Muslim, that she was going to heaven because she fed that starving dog water with her shoe.
Yeah. I know. I mean, your answer makes a lot of sense. It's not that it's a command from God, but more of a let's keep it civil among us. And then the other question I have,
really quick, Max, before you ask the next question, I want to say thank you, Samir, for the $10 super chat.
oh yes, thank you, Samir.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's a
Oh, you're
pleasure
very
to have you
welcome.
here.
Yeah, no, tonight I honestly feel guilty. I felt like I kind of hijacked the
No.
conversation.
No,
I felt like many people didn't get to talk, and I'm really sorry.
no, you don't have to be.
Really? This helped. I think we learned more. I love learning about different cultures and different religions and different
Yeah.
beliefs. And I believe that challenging each other like we did helped to understand where we have the conflicts in the worldviews, maybe help you understand what it would take to convince me to change my mind. And I learned more about Islamic traditions. And I think that is healthy to normalize people of Islam, bring us together so we can talk these things out instead of fighting these things out, which is
Yeah.
not productive at all. So I really do appreciate you having here. But with that, the reason why I interrupted Max before he asked the question, I am in extreme pain right now. My foot, I have a very bad gout flare up. The top of my foot is all swollen and red, and it hurts. I need to go put my foot up. And with that, I'm going to leave. So I'm turning it over to Max so he can close
right.
out. So I got to go, guys.
Okay, get better.
Okay, well, I hope you feel better.
I go to the
Thank-
doctor tomorrow to
Isaac.
get some meds and stuff, and hopefully, I asked. It doesn't matter. I go in X-rays. I'll see you guys. Bye. I
Do
can't
you have to
drive.
leave?
Good
I
luck.
can't-
All the best.
I can't drive because it's my right foot, and
Yeah.
my son was working. He's going to drive me there tomorrow. So okay, bye.
All right, take
All right.
care. Thank you so much.
Close it out.
All right,
Max,
bye-bye.
When you're done.
Yes, I will. And the other question I have is, I was digging into the story, the history of soap, and it looks like even the Babylonians had soap. So do we know if they used soap during the prayers, or is it more of an ablution with just water?
No, it was okay. I mean, I could use a better example than soap because we have no proof that was soap, because the proof that would tell me that the Babylonian was using soap could be easily refuted, just like as some people would refute the idea that Jesus, who was way after the Babylonians, ever existed, or Muhammad ever existed, and they would say it's just a myth. And like sometimes when they say that, like I find no argument. Like even if I tell them the Quran or the Bible, they would just stick to their opinion and would say no, they never existed. So if I can refute Jesus, then I can refute soap just as easily.
That doesn't follow, I'm afraid, Samir.
No, the problem is that for soap we have, and I'm sorry, I said the Babylonians, but I think I'm referring to the Egyptians, that they found like a jar with soap, and they also found hieroglyphs detailing a recipe of how to render fat with ash to make soap. So,
Well,
I mean, it's just a question.
no. Let me admit little something for you. I kind of use that just to make that argument, but there is something that probably most of you don't know. There is natural mountains of soap where I'm from. If you go to the north of Morocco, there is something called Ghassoul. I don't know if Isa know what that is. It's basically rocks that you wash yourself with, and they melt in water, and they are soap. And we buy them and we take them to the hammam. You guys know what the hammam is. Basically, you can get out of your car, park, and go to the side of the mountain and break off a piece of soap. So, yeah, soap did exist maybe for billions of years, or I don't know. But there is something in Islam called miswak. Miswak, basically, it's the stick. Isa knows exactly what I'm talking about. So it's the stick, that you would bite the tip of it with your hand, with your mouth, and then it would have bristles, naturally occurring bristles, and you would brush your teeth with it just like a toothbrush. And it was also discovered that stick of miswak, you can just Google miswak, benefits of miswak, and you will find that it has a lot of benefits for your gum, for your teeth, for everything, antibacterial, antifungal, anti-everything, to the point where there is a toothpaste that you can buy, which is like a little bit pricier than the regular toothpaste, which is made out of miswak. But that defeats the purpose, because there is nothing more amazing than just grabbing the stick and brushing your teeth with it. So they did that back in the time. And the Prophet, okay,
Go ahead, Gus,
and the
sorry.
Prophet told his companions, to always use miswak so their breaths don't stink and their teeth don't turn yellow or fall off. Or
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. All right, let's we're
Well,
3
if I
hours
could
and
just-
20 minutes.
If I
Yes,
could just mention the last, well, I think maybe Dr. J wants to say something as well, but I just wanted to say, there's written tradition, and I think it's in the 2nd century, of Arabs having what's the word I'm looking for? Obsession, not something as strong as an obsession, but hygiene being extremely important in the culture, more so than certainly Christians of the time, and certainly Europeans for many thousand, for another 1,000 years or so. So I think that tradition strongly was already in Arabia for many centuries before the Quran was, or before Muhammad was born even. There's a lot of traditional things that get carried through, as far as I'm aware.
all right, we're
No,
going to
no, I mean,
go around. Give me 1 second. We're going to go around, give some closing thoughts. If you have something coming up on the interwebs, you can promote yourself shamelessly, and we love you for that. So, Errol, if you want, or if we not, we can jump straight to Isa.
Well, I just wanted to respond really quick to this about the tradition of the Arabs, about the hygiene. It's a little different case. Now we are talking about something different. Isa knows what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the ghusl from janaba. We are talking about washing your times I'm saying up to 5 times a day, because if you do not use the bathroom, you don't have to. But there is something in Islam called tajdeed al-wudu. So when you're washing yourself so many times a day, that is something that was not in the prior tradition. When you do ghusl from janaba, exactly after any sexual encounter, you have to do it before the next prayer. There is 5 prayers in a day, so you cannot sit with janaba for any period of time, which causes you to have bad odors or whatever was going to say. So I could not compare the previous culture in being hygienic to the culture that made these strict rules about your daily life. When we talk about prayer, it's not like Christians where they go to the church on Sunday. We're talking about 5 times a day at least. You're making 17 rak'ahs every day. We're talking about ghusl. We're talking about Ramadan, when you stay up to do Taraweeh and you only have few hours to sleep. Do you have an encounter with your wife, or you have to keep in mind that you made Taraweeh and you gotta get up for suhoor and there is not enough time? Are you gonna be able to make that washing before the prayer? So it's completely different than previous cultures. If that answers your question.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. So
Yeah,
please,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Max.
We need to close it out. It's getting really late, and I need to work tomorrow. I slept very few last night, so I'm a bit tired. So let's go around. I'm going to give it first to Isa. Give a closing message. Self-promote if you have anything. Say hi to your mom, whatever you feel like it. Isa, take it away.
Well, it's an honor, blessing. I'm always glad to be here on the panel and being able to communicate and share ideas, and I feel honored that I'm always welcome here. I wanted to add one thing. I want to explain what Samir was saying, because I think it might be complex for folks. Just that one thing. I'm not going to go into everything, but he mentioned janaba. Janaba is like filth. So basically, if you're kind of like dirty, particularly after having like sexual relations, you take a shower. That's what ghusl is. That's the best word I can kind of use for it. You take a shower. There's a big purification, which is the shower, which is the ghusl, and the wudu is like a smaller purification, which is what we've talked about before. So I just tried to make that as simple as possible. It's a little bit difficult to explain all of these things. So my how I am, I have a YouTube. I always stream this, so that's cool. You can always see it on my channel. I have some like animation stuff that I've done, and I made a little religion video too. So you can watch that stuff if you're interested in that. I've done debates on Modern Day Debates, so this is my place. You can check out our Discord. We have Modern Day Debates Discord. So if you want to have a chat there, that's a plug. And you'll see me everywhere. You know, I come to base if the videos are here, I'm gonna be on. I know Max is going to be doing a video very soon on telling a story. I think it's going to be on Orpheus, which is going to be really cool. I'll be there. So you know, whenever there's a Matters Now or Modern Day Debates, you'll see me around.
All right. Dr. J, any final words, any final promotions or anything?
I don't think so. I mean, I technically do have a sermon posted every week. I'm not sure this is a great place to be getting a lot of followers on that, but I suppose those things don't exist. It's great to be with you guys.
Thank you so much. Simos, any
Okay, thank
final
you.
words?
Yeah, just a couple of final words, if I may. Firstly, thank you to Samir for giving some challenging interpretations, which I appreciate. It's certainly always good to get your views challenged. Thank you to Isa as well, because for explaining some of the more complex parts to me. So I appreciate that. And thank you to Dr. J. I'd really like to talk to you sometime because we have diametrically opposed ideas, really. And I'd love to get your interpretation and whether my crude interpretations of Christianity have any merit or not. So I don't want to be just focusing on anti-views, but whether my kind of interpretation has validity or not. And that's really something I'd like to debate with you at some point. Or at least discuss with you anyway. So maybe we can do that sometime, and I'll maybe give you some information to Max or something, and you can come on either my channel or one of the debate channels that I go on, and we can do something. I don't know.
All right. And finally, Samir, any final words? Do you have any self-promotion to do? Thank you for coming. Thank you for your super chat. It was really amazing having this chat with you today.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you, Simons. I appreciate the kind words. There are two things that I want to say. No, I don't seek to promote myself, but there are two things that I want to say. Number one, I apologize to everyone for hijacking the conversation. I still feel guilty, especially to I killed Earl, because I feel like once I took the live out of context, like she didn't say a single word after that, and maybe even to Max and Dr. J after that, because they participated the least. The other thing that I want to say, I want to emphasize this. I hope that it was clear that I did not perform namima against Muhammad, which is I did not talk about Muhammad in his back. I was talking about Muhammad's positions, which I believe we are here to do, because it would be wrong in my religion that I would be talking bad about someone when they're not here to defend themselves. I was talking about his positions, which was the subject of the debate and the subject of the after debate. So I hope nobody misunderstands that there is a Muslim who was ripping his brother apart when he wasn't there. Aside from that, I appreciate everyone's contribution tonight, and I appreciate the patience of the crowd. Uh, and funny enough, like there are other topics that I would like to talk about, and I was thinking about creating. You remember, Simon? You were talking about the accent in the French language. I was thinking about creating a channel and name it Wisdom with an Accent, and put like an accent over the O, and talk about things that I believe. And I just wondered if I was ready to take on that challenge, because it's easier to just come up one time every now and then on a different page than when it becomes expected from you. Because there are a lot of things that I want to. I have a lot of things that I need to say before I die. I feel like this is my burden in life. There is a lot of things that I need to say before I die, and it's not just about religion. It's about a lot of different topics, and I just enjoy sharing with the public. I only wish I could say them in as few of words as Isa can.
It takes time. And Isa is a great communicator and a great friend of the show. Everyone loves him here. Same goes for Dr. J. Simos, you've been growing on us. I think I met you yesterday and we had a really good chat on the debate. I don't think Earl wants to say anything. If you do, Earl, come on. Hey.
Bye, everybody.
All right.
Love you.
Let me do a little bit housekeeping. We're waiting on the 4th for Ocean's debate. And tomorrow, my show, Tell Me That Story, it was going to be today, but we had a debate, so we moved it for tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to talk about Orpheus. It's a lovely story. It has a lot of very positive things, and it's going to be fun. And the next show, next week, we're going to talk about the love of two caliphs. And we're going to tell their love stories, set them a little bit of history, and tell the love stories of these two caliphs, which are widely different. And it's a bit more serious tone than all my previous shows, but it also has their humor component. So everyone, 3 hours and a half today of after show. We went really overboard, but I want to thank Samir again for your super chat, for being open to Discord and open to us challenging your beliefs. We know sometimes that can take, some people feel attacked personally when you challenge these things, but it's really valuable the way that you can conduct yourselves, mostly with me being a filthy atheist. I mean, I know you don't want to talk to me, but it's perfect that you can basically give us your views and share a night with us with no problems. And we're all good friends here. That's the best of this channel, that we welcome everyone. We have flat earthers. We have I remember the guy that came about the exorcisms. We accept everyone and we're willing to debate all of these topics. So I'm closing it out. Thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you tomorrow.
3:33:33.